We're going to call our meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. All right, before we do the approval of minutes, the town manager has asked to address the assembly.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, before I begin, I'm going to have the fire chief step up to the podium. He has some safety messages for you. Thank you, Chief. So, to maintain order and safety, I'm asking everybody to please be respectful and follow the rules. Please respect the 3-minute time limit. There's a lot of people here who want to have their opportunity to speak. We have people in the overflow room. They want to have their opportunity. So what they're going to do is when that time comes, they're going to exit that room behind me. They're going to walk to the front entrance here and get an officer's detention. The officer will signal the council president so they can have an opportunity to come up as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have the approval of our minutes. So our first item is approval of the April 8, 2019 executive session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Next item is the approval of the April 15, 2019 regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Next is the April 23, 2019 work session for the budget.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Next is the April 24, 2019 budget work session.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. And finally, April 25th, 2019 budget work session.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0. For our announcements and presentations, before we get to the panels, I just wanted to mention the Taste of the Towers, which was held last Friday, and Donna Giachico and the staff of the Towers wanted to thank them for putting on a great event. That's an annual event that's very successful at the Towers. The next item is we are going to be unveiling new panels. You may notice that all the plaques that we used to have throughout the chamber are now no longer there. So these new panels honor the council members who have served since before 1900. And the Department of Public Works has worked on these through the wintertime, and it's to beautify and kind of declutter those old plaques that we had. So we're going to do an unveiling of those right now.
Looks like a bear camera, but to me.
All right, so thank you again to the Department of Public Works for that, and appreciate that, and encourage everybody to look at those, and helps people to see the history of the town. So our next item is our consent agenda. All right, so are there any items that any council members would like to remove from the consent agenda?
No, sir.
All right, seeing none. All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item number 21 is a motion to authorize the acting town manager to sign the solid waste and recycling services agreement with the Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation for a 2-year period, fiscal years 2020 to 2021, subject to review and approval by the town solicitor.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Can you give us a brief overview on that? Or Mike? Yep.
That's just a 2-year agreement with Resource Recovery for the town's tipping eligibility at Resource Recovery. For the next 2 years, it's $47 a ton, up from the $32.50 that it was before. And we're not sure what it'll be in the next 2 years, but it just holds that tipping fee at the 47.
All right, great. Are there any questions from the council? All right. All right, anyone from the public? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. All right, next is item number 22, a motion to receive and place on file the 2019-2022 Towers Management and Operation Plan.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. So this item is, I'm the Towers liaison, so it's come up. I'm going to ask Dave Ousterhout, who's the chair of the Towers Committee, to come forward. But every 3 years, we have an operating plan for the towers, which operates as a management fund. And this year, the last few years, we're very proud of its success. But this is something that each year they do make slight changes to their overall operating plan. So I'm going to have Mr. Ousterhout make a brief presentation.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to keep my comments real short because I know you're going to have a busy night tonight. But on page 5 of the plan, which is part of the message to the town council, I'd just like to quickly go over the key changes in this plan that make it a little bit different than the previous one. The things that have changed since you adopted or received the plan a few years ago was we've more formalized our partnership with the Narragansett Historical Society so that they can run events in the towers, educate the public on Narragansett's history and other topics of interest. The Towers Committee has also created a part-time position to coordinate all the public events at the towers as opposed to the private events. I think this will be useful going forward in that there'll be a dedicated person for planning these programs and overseeing their operation and their fit into our overall program. That position won't be filled right away. Our current season is pretty well all taken care of, so we'd probably be hiring that part-time person in the second half of the upcoming fiscal year. The third bullet, operating surpluses will be utilized to fund capital improvements and major repairs. As most of you know, the exterior restoration of the towers is 100% complete. Most of the capital expenditures going forward will be for much smaller projects designed to enhance the user's experience and also to provide safer use of the building and more convenient use. Fourth bullet, committee member appointments are being changed from 2 years to 5-year terms. And part of that is the reality that it takes a number of years for a committee member to be productive and contribute to the efforts of the committee. And also, it's designed so that the term limits provision of the town charter doesn't interfere with the smooth, efficient operation of the towers. That'll bring Towers Committee member appointments in line with boards like Zoning Board, Planning Board. And then finally, on the capital funding, which I previously mentioned, it's going to be focused on major maintenance and improvements. And as part of that, the Towers Committee will be working to develop a 5 or possibly 10-year look-forward plan to ensure that as maintenance on the building needs to be done, there is sufficient funding on hand, and that we don't lose sight of our responsibility to preserve all that restoration work that's been completed and keep the building there for future generations to enjoy. And I'm open to any questions if any of you have them.
All right, if there are any questions or comments from the council? All right, any questions or comments from the public? All right.
Question, sir.
Would you like to come to the podium?
Stan Wojciechowski, Narragansett. I think I was at the budget hearing and work session, and I heard that David had like a $400,000 surplus, and therefore he did not request the normal $50,000 like he used to many, many years ago. And I wanted to commend him for that financial responsibility on that, and paying attention to funds. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Item 23 is a motion to approve a resolution regarding management and operations of the towers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, so this is a related item to what we just voted on, and puts it in a resolution form. Any questions on that? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Thank you, Dave. Item number 24, a motion to approve providing immediate access of the Belmont Market Space to the Library Board of Trustees.
I'd like to move that motion.
Second.
Discussion, this item comes from Mr. Murray and Mr. Pugh.
Okay, good evening. Can you hear me? Yes. All right. Okay. A couple months ago, the Library Board of Trustees put out an RFP, which is a request for a proposal for architects to go in there and kind of hone in on the cost of building out that space. But the town has not let these architects go on the premises. So this is respectfully request an up and down vote by this council to grant the Library Board of Trustees permission to access the Belmont Market Space for the purpose of exercising the current RFP for the build-out of the subject space. So this is pretty basic stuff here. I know how we feel, but you guys up for that? I think, you know, the Library Trust and their supporters, I think they might be our best buyers if you want to sell the building. They may be able to put a 501(c) together and maybe make a purchase, but and they would know the true cost of the build-out of that space. So, what do you think?
So you're asking for, during the sales process, and you're asking for access for one department to have the access to this building?
No, I'm
Board of
asking
Trustees.
for the Library Trust to exercise their RFP and let the architects go in so they can come up with different plans on to refit that space, the Belmont space.
All right, thank you. All right, any comments or questions from the council?
Yeah, I also would support this this motion. We bought the town bought the building to be used as a library last fall, so we haven't sold it. Still owned by the town. The RFP is out. You can't really get bids for an RFP without letting prospective contractors or architecture firms walk the premises. I don't know of any other instance where a department has been locked out of a building in town in this way. So I definitely would support this this motion.
Right, thank you. Well, the purchase of the building, but right now there's not ownership by the library of that building. So,
Right.
and the RFP went out, the town didn't send out an RFP. The Board of Trustees independently sent out an RFP.
Understood.
And there also is the fact that we voted on January 22nd to sell the building.
Is it listed in any MLS number?
There also is the fact that we voted on January 22nd to sell the building, Jesse.
Is it listed?
Jesse, I'm not going to answer that question. We actually voted to sell the building on January 22nd.
Is it listed as real estate for sale anywhere?
Well, it doesn't mean we couldn't, get a sense of what the build-out costs, from these architects. I mean, there's always a plan B in the event that we do not sell that space, and one of you have an epiphany that, we may be able to have some more information that the build-out will not be that expensive, as previously, discussed. So.
The town council didn't vote to put out an RFP, the Board of Trustees did.
Exactly. This is why I'm asking for
So
an
that
up or
is
down vote
very
respectfully.
strange.
Yeah,
Most
well,
departments don't go out and put RFPs without the authority of the
Well, there's been a
council.
lot of strange stuff happening here, so, this is why we gotta do stuff like this. So I know this isn't protocol, but, I think we spent years working on this project. I think to give the library the ability to exercise this RFP is not a great burden to the town at this time.
It is very much outside protocol. That's what you got correct.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
does anyone want to comment on this? Yes.
Lori Kelly, Wildfield Farm Road. Thank you once again, Patrick and Jesse, for putting this on to try to support the library and the people of town of Narragansett who truly want this to go forward. To answer Mr. Mannix's statement, how odd this is, I don't remember an RFP going out on the cabanas for the rebuild this semester, whatever it is, the year, because it would seem to me that when people in the town of Narragansett vote for something and they're above the town council as to, the hierarchy here, it should be followed. We did not have an RFP for the cabanas. I'm not picking on Parks and Rec. They do an excellent job. I love the schools. I'm not attacking another department. But when you say that, well, this is really odd, I think it's really odd that no one voted to redo the cabanas. No one had an RFP on the cabanas. It was a secret little thing that came forward where they said, okay, we've discussed this behind closed doors. We're going to go forward with that. That also seems odd to me. Is it acceptable? Fine. We all love the beach. We love the facilities that we have in the town. But to single us out that we did an RFP and how odd that is, I think that you're not being fair to the library once again. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not true. Just name and address for the record. I apologize. Everybody who comes up, please give your name and address.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I'd like to know if anyone on the town council has seen this RFP. Do they have the name of an architect? And how far has this gone? In other words, I know that there was some kind of meeting where the people who might be interested in working on this project, but has someone been picked? Has someone been picked, an architect been picked to? No.
No,
So
there's
who are you
several.
going to take in?
No,
Who's going in to
No,
look at
there's
the
several. There'd be several
So it's
architects.
gonna be
But the
train of
problem is,
people?
they're architects. They need access to the building. They can't do anything without looking at the building.
Has
so-
anyone seen the RFP?
Yes.
Yes.
And everybody's seen it, okay. But no one person has been picked yet.
No.
Now, hasn't this building been reviewed before? Haven't there been other RFPs? Haven't people gone in? I mean, is there any kind of frame of reference for any of this?
No, not for a refit for a library. I'm sure,
Not for a refit for a library.
Maybe somebody
Well,
looked
you
at
know,
it before.
it's the library
Catherine, let's
board.
make it a comment instead of a back and
All right,
forth as
okay,
to what's
all right.
your.
Sorry.
yeah.
I'm opposed,
President.
frankly, unless something else comes to light, something we don't know. I can't imagine why this would happen. The building is for sale. They don't own the building. The town owns the building. End of story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Meg Rogers, 68 Earls Court, Narragansett. So Catherine Celiberto, my neighbor, who's a lovely woman who votes in Naples, Florida, who is absolutely right. The town bought the building. That means that our elected representatives in the prior council exercised a contract to purchase the building to build our new library in. For whom? For we, the people. And we, the people of Narragansett, own that building. Not Matthew Mannix, not Jill Lawler, and not Councilor Lima. You don't own the building. Well, if you pay taxes, I guess you do own the building. If you don't pay taxes, you don't. So some of you do own the building. But I think it's the guy that doesn't pay the taxes who wants to deny us access to our building. Think about that. The guy that doesn't pay taxes wants to deny my representative in my library, my board of trustees, access to a building that was purchased with taxpayer money. Catherine Celiberto has a stake in that building. She pays taxes in the town. The people of Narragansett own the building, Matthew, and we are asking you respectfully to give us, through our library board of trustees, access to that building. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard and Karen.
Yeah, hi. Richard Vangermish, 55 Osceola. The great communicator, Ronald Reagan, said in Berlin, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. I say to the town council, open up the doors to the second floor over the liquor store. Let the public see what we have bought. I'll be there in my shuffleboard suit, even though my doctor says I'm too old to play shuffleboard. The only thing that is good for the second floor is a shuffleboard course, and let the public see how useless that structure is. It was the greatest error ever made to purchase the second floor over the liquor store.
Thank you.
Molly Weiss-Nesselver of 5 Judith Ave. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming on behalf of every child who loves the library who couldn't attend tonight's meeting. The library has been such a special place for me my entire childhood, not just me, but every kid who loves reading. I've lived in Narragansett my entire life, and I've been brought to the library ever since I can remember by my mom and my grandparents. For me growing up, the library was a safe place for my brother, mom, and I. Listen, for kids who don't have internet access to computers are there to do their homework so they don't fail their classes. People who don't have homes, who want access to the world from the internet. People who don't have internet or computers. Budget cuts equal no more computers. Libraries are education. Libraries are family. Libraries are peaceful. The library is my childhood. I want my library. Don't take it away.
With 63 Wanda Street, board member of the trustees. I would like to thank all the families that came out tonight with young children, because I realize usually public forum is at the end of the meeting, which was heard at the end of the meeting by you, Mr. Mannix, and supported by you, Ms. Lawler, and supported by you, Mr. Lima. So these students would like to come and speak and participate in their government, but they obviously can't if it's going to be at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. And you, Mr. Mannix, making your wisecracks about how this is a weird thing that the trustees are doing RFPs. Well, I guess you haven't done your homework and read the state regulations about the library and who is in charge of making plans for the library. We even had someone from the state library come and speak to you and speak to the council, and you just refuse to believe or listen to anybody, even though it's in the regulations. That I find extremely weird. This is a democracy, and laws were passed by the state legislature for the benefit of libraries, and you seem to have another idea of who should be in control. And I really resent that, and I resent all the names you have called the library supporters right along as if you're some sort of know-it-all that has a supreme understanding of what's going on in town, as opposed to the rest of us. And so it is a little unusual the way the legislature put this up, but this is exactly for this reason, because they don't want it to become a political thing. And I would say to you, three, that you're more interested in the politics than you are in supporting the hub of this community, which is the library. Shame on you.
Hello, my name is May Van
Wait 1 second. This will be our last speaker before our public hearings, which are scheduled at 8 o'clock. All right, go ahead.
My name is May Van Kuken of 84 South Pier Road. And as a child of Narragansett, I would like to speak on the behalf of the other students who agree with me and my colleagues. Being a student, there's a certain curriculum in which we have to follow in school. There are selected things that we have to learn about, which is not up our capabilities to switch. Although our school has a library, it does not provide as much resources as Mary Luton's Memorial Library always has. Here, I don't have to gain information about the curriculum that I learn about 5 days a week, 42 days of the year. Instead, in this library, I don't just read about the curriculum. I learn about filmmaking, art styles, climate change, and I can basically write about whatever I want. The Mary Luton's Memorial Library is my happy place. I learned about my passion. I learned about what I want to do with my life, but most importantly, and sadly less recognized by others, I learned about morals. When I was in 3rd grade, I opened my first Jerry Spinelli book. I learned that kindness overpowers all character traits. When I was in 6th grade, I opened my first Harry Potter book. It told me that bravery can come in all types of forms. This year, as an 8th grader, I opened a book about Andy Warhol. I learned that living a life not being yourself is a life not really being lived. I can't help but wonder what would have happened if those doors to the library had been locked when I was in search of knowledge. Today, I am very angry. I am very angry that this library is that may not be here for the future people who are in search of knowledge. But after reading many books, I have learned that anger can help us achieve our passions. Thank you.
So our stenographer is getting ready. Our 8 o'clock public hearings are noticed, so we need to start them at 8 o'clock. We have several of them. I'll give her a minute. Do you need a minute? I can take another speaker, or do you want? Are you ready? 1 minute. All right. All right, we'll take one more speaker, and then we'll have our stenographer set up for 8 o'clock.
Good evening. My name is Mal Goldenberg. I live at 25 Earls Court. I guess I'm the third person from Earls Court. And I generally tend to be a very pragmatic and non-political type person. Very much focused on common sense. There are two things here. Number one, I'm very much in favor of the library. But in terms of getting an RFP, I think we owe it to the pro side and to the con side to go in and see what we physically have in that building. It may, it may end up being when the architects look at it and they come with what it's going to cost to convert it to what we want, that it is outrageous and it might be the smartest thing to do is sell the building, or it might be a lot less expensive than we think, and the three of you might come around and say, you know, this is a pretty good idea now, it's within the budget and everything else, and change your mind and not sell the building and create the library that everybody in this town, 68.7% of the people who voted wanted. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so our first item is a motion to hold a public hearing to consider various applications from town departments and/or local nonprofit organizations for the 2018 Community Development Block Grant Program. Is there a motion to open that hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. So some of you are familiar with this program. Our community development department head will provide an overview of this year's CDBG for us, and then we can ask questions of him.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will try to be expeditious with my time, as there's a lot on your table tonight. And as many of you recall, because we do this every year, this is an annual grant program, the Community Development Block Grant Program. It is administered by the State Office of Housing and Community Development, with funds provided by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. These funds are intended to assist our members of our community who are low, moderate income, and in many possible ways, including construction, rehab of their homes, building of residences, but also in funding of public services and facilities. Each year, the town solicits for the nonprofit organizations in the region to apply for assistance in the categories of public service and public facilities. The slide you see on the wall, I've already covered a couple things there. What has happened, though, in recent past is that there's been a change in the regulations at the state level so that the nonprofit agencies such as Domestic Violence Resource Center, Johnny Cake Center, Galilee Mission, et cetera, do not have to apply to every community in which they serve. That was the standard for many, many years in the past. So they would have to fill out a dozen different applications and submit them all over South County. The state actually changed that a couple years ago. So now there are designated communities for each agency, and each agency then only supplies one application to their designated community. And then the grant funds, if awarded, are dispersed to the local community that has sponsored that individual agency and assigned to those agencies. The public service grant funds are capped at $100,000, and we are allowed to submit 2 applications at maximum. So just to give you an idea of where we are right now, we started this process for this year, and on March 14th, at which we held a regional informational hearing. It was held at Richmond Town Hall and was sponsored by the Washington County Community Development Corporation, who administers and manages the funds for 8 communities in Washington County. So those 8 communities were all represented there that night. We solicited the applications, as I mentioned. Our deadline was April 5th. We received 1 application. That was from the Domestic Violence Resource Center of South County. In the interim, we've reviewed the application. We've checked it for compliance with the Comprehensive Plan and the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974. The Planning Board reviewed it on April 16th. I had to check that date, and recommended approval. Tonight, we are here to review that application and ask that you approve it and also approve a resolution supporting that application. The application is by Domestic Violence Resource Center. They are requesting $50,000 and for assistance, which I won't get into any detail on because we have a representative here from the center. And then the second element up there that you see on the screen is for the administration. And the way that works is it doesn't have to be submitted as a separate application. It is calculated as 15% of whatever it is that we receive through the grant. So if we receive the full $50,000 for the Domestic Violence Resource Center, then we would be asking for the $7,500 for administrative funds through the state of Rhode Island. So that is all I have at the moment. Kristen Muse of the Domestic Violence Resource Center is here and would like to address you briefly.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. My name is Kristen Muse, and I'm from the Domestic Violence Resource Center. This year, we're requesting $50,000 to support our residential program, which consists of a safe home and 4 permanent supportive housing units. Our safe home houses victims of domestic violence for anywhere from 1 day to 6 months. And our permanent supportive housing units provide opportunities for our clients to move on to more permanent housing. All of our residential programs have wraparound services, which we provide. Last year, we served over 1,000 clients, and we provided more than 6,300 services, which include clinical, residential, and counseling, as well as court advocacy. The one thing that we find with our clients is that the #1 barrier to self-sufficiency is housing. And so these funds are critical. We can't do the work that we do without being able to ensure that our clients are safe and that they won't go back to their abuser. So we respectfully ask for your approval for $50,000 to support our residential program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll entertain any questions you may have.
All right, is there anyone from the public that would like to testify regarding the CDBG grant? Come forward, David and then Catherine, and please turn to the solicitor.
Dave Rudy, 125 Caswell Street, Narragansett.
Dave, would you please raise your right hand?
Oh.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm familiar with the work of this organization and have participated in some of their programs, and am close friends with a lot of people who support this organization directly. And I urge you to support this organization. Domestic violence is an issue not only every place else, but in Narragansett. And we need the support of this kind of program to give the people protection who need to find a safe place when they're in a domestic violence situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
We are entitled to up to $100,000. And every year, I don't understand, we just never seem to ask for what we're entitled. We always send money back to the state, essentially. And one year, I remember, this happened, and the town council voted to pretty much double everybody's request. And so what I'd like you to do is to raise the Domestic Violence Resource Center's request so we can get the $100,000, frankly, from the state that we're entitled to. Why are we sending money back? Makes no sense to me. So if you think you can do that, I would like you to.
Thank you.
Mike, can we do that?
Having reviewed the center's budget, they do have a very extensive budget that far exceeds the $100,000 limit. So it would be conceivable that we could double that request if they were to amend their application and send it back to us. If you would open that door for them, I'd be happy to process that paperwork.
So procedurally, we would have to bring back another hearing because it would be noticed. Is that what you're saying, or can we?
No, I don't believe you need to. I think you could more or less provide it as a contingency sort of an approval if you chose to, and then we would make the paperwork work. I have to have it all ready by and completed by next Wednesday, so it would be a little bit of a shuffle, but I think we could do it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Karen Chapsholowitz, 63 Wanda Street.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth,
Yes,
and nothing
I
but the
do.
truth? Thank you.
One of my daughters, Sarah, had 2 fellowships when she was at Tufts in dealing with women's issues and domestic violence. I also worked as a nurse at Bradley Hospital, which is a psychiatric hospital for children. There is a lot that can be done as far as the educational system, like doing trainings on date rape and domestic abuse to high school students, even elementary students. And there's a lot that they could do, so there's a lot of education that can come out of this for the whole community. And I think it would benefit the whole community, and I would appreciate if you could support them as much as you could. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to testify? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Next is a motion to draft a resolution authorizing the town's manager to submit an application for funding of community development block grants to the town and designated nonprofit agencies for qualifying projects and programs.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, so this would be where we would amend this, if somebody wants to put an amendment
move to
to go
amend.
up to the 100,
Yeah.
probably to go up to the cap, because there is a second, that smaller one.
I move to amend the amount and to double from 50 up to 100,000.
Second.
All right, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Next is a motion to hold a public hearing on the secondhand goods dealer license application of Richard A. Bloom Richard A. Bloom doing business as Narragantiques at 909 Boston Neck Road, Unit Number 3, subject to local and state regulations. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Is the applicant present? Please come forward. Now, name and address and turn to the solicitor, please.
Hi, my name is Richard A. Bloom, 27 Mettituxet Road, Narragansett.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Welcome. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm looking to take over an existing building that has not been run for over a year and a half, trying to get as much out of that building as I possibly can, using the inventory that's there and my inventory. And I've had a lot of people tell me that it sounds like a very good idea, so I'm going forward with it, based on your approvals.
So the second business that's in that unit is, can you describe for that we know where the plaza is, but you're with the Old Bonnet Video, right?
It's the Old Bonnet Video, and then it was the Cleaners. Right now, it's going to be Narragantiques and Collections. It's going to be selling antiques and sports memorabilia, secondhand pieces mostly.
And you'll be sharing that with someone else, that
No,
space? Or is
no,
that
it's
all
all
yours?
mine.
Okay.
I have a pretty important question for you. Richard, you used to own Rookie Mania.
I did. How you doing, Jesse?
Good. I used to sort baseball cards for you in the shop. Good to see you're still doing the sports memorabilia. I did buy the Griffey 89 Upper Deck from you. Anyway, that's all. I just want to make sure it was you. So,
Same person.
thanks. Great.
Yeah, Richard, how do you feel about libraries? No. No.
All right, are there any other people that want to, we might have you come back if there's any questions, but anyone else want to testify?
Good. Good to go.
All right, seeing none, then we will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. And then do I have a motion on the license itself?
So moved.
Second.
Is this moving to approve it?
Moving to approve.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Congratulations.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Next, we have a motion to schedule a public hearing on a petition from Michael Maxon, doing business as Bed and Bistro Incorporated, 83 Narragansett Avenue, Plat C, Lot 344B, Narragansett, Rhode Island, to Calaveras LLC, doing business as Calaveras, 83 Narragansett Avenue, Plat C, Lot 344B in Narragansett, Rhode Island.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Terry, do you have a date for that hearing? All right, so this would be scheduled for June 3rd at 8 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, our next is a motion to hold a second public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2020 budget.
So moved.
Second.
It's a motion to open the public hearing. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. I'm going to ask our new finance director to come forward and present for us. We had 3 work sessions, and the work sessions are where we look at all the town departments, and we now have a presentation from our new town finance director. So welcome. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Council President Mannix, council members, Acting Town Manager Corrigan. Tonight I'll be presenting the overview of the 2020 Town Council proposed budget. The first slide is the estimated 1920 levy and tax rate. And as you can see on the bottom of the slide, we're looking at a 3.6% increase in the levy and a proposed increase in the residential tax rate of 3.37 or 3.4, which will bring the rate up to $10.29 per thousand. The next slide, Mike. Thank you. Has the notable changes in the budget. There is an increase in the funding for capital projects. We continue to fund the contributions at 100% for the pension and the OPEB funds. We added a DPW position half-time this year, in the middle of the year. Again, the tax levy at a 3.6 maximum, anticipating 3.4% increase. And then the use of fund balance to reserve our fund balance reserve to cover the capital, and it will still leave the town within its policy of 10 to 15%, which is around 12%. And then there was a decrease in the general fund transfer to the library for $441,103. Major changes in the 1920 from 1819 budget. The total budget is $61 million. It's up about 1.6 or 2.7%. The tax revenue up 1.7 million or the 3.4%. Personnel up 775,000, mostly due to contractual obligations. Capital transfer up 580,000. And on the next slide, we have a breakdown of those. School transfers up. The debt service transfer went up $594,000. That's mostly due to the 2019 road bond we're in the process of closing on. The OPEB transfer is down $221,000. And the library transfer again, $441,103. The capital project breakdown, you can pretty much see it up there for yourself, but the IT infrastructure is needed to have a more secure system, which is very important nowadays. The fire apparatus at $500,000 is the second year funding for Engine 4, which is over 20 years old. Field code replacement, road improvements, public works, parked vehicles, that's all continuing the maintenance of our inventory. Parks and recreation's up $195,000. Storm drain replacement, $125,000, and other miscellaneous projects at $133,000. The last four are capital projects for our enterprise funds. Next one. This is just a visual representation of the capital projects over the several years in the history for the capital funding. Next. And the impact on the taxes, as I've said previously, the proposed tax for the residential property is $10.29 per thousand, and the commercial rate is proposed at $14.40. The fiscal year 18-19 rates are $9.95 and $13.93 per thousand. The tax levy increases of $1,858,283, which represents about 3.6% over the current year. And then what's next is the adoption of the town council budget by ordinance, which is scheduled for May 20th, and the second hearing for June 3rd. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice job.
Thank you. All right, so is there any comment from the council regarding the budget?
Yeah, I got some comments. So just for everyone in the crowd, there's multiple library items on the agenda tonight. This is the one that deals with the budget cuts. We have another item later to maintain the maintenance of effort, but this is the item that is important, which actually affects the budget. So I just want to make sure that's clear for anyone kind of scheduling their evening. So we had the workshop last week. I do have some questions for you, but do you mind if I just call you back? Yeah, thank you. We had was it last week, the budget workshop? I think it was last week. Yeah, so it's 3 nights, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The way that it works is the town council president sits with the finance department and kind of has some meetings in anticipation of our workshop. The finance department also puts together their recommended budget that works with the president to kind of schedule those workshops and to set up an agenda basically for those workshop nights. When we hold the workshop, we go through department by department and pretty much kind of audit their expenses, discuss with them their expenditures, their revenue, their balance, and then in the third night, make a decision on if we're going to approve that budget or if we're going to make any changes to it. And then after that, we have the public hearing, and that's where the official vote happens. So that's tonight, and also it's going to be on the 20th and the 3rd. In these meetings, I guess I could say they were a little bit shocking. The library has not had their budget increased in 4 years. Other departments have. So all that was being requested was basically a level funding of the last 4 years. So really, they're kind of actually losing money every year because you have inflation and they're not requesting additional money. It seemed kind of like a obvious choice to just approve that budget. They're not asking for an increase. That clearly did not happen. It was cut by more than half, from $841,000 to $400,000. One of the reasons for that cut, given by Councilor Lima, was that families are on the edge here in Narragansett, and they can't afford, to fund the library in that way. and also that it would be socialism to level fund the library. So,
What a lie.
a lie, it's on tape.
Let's get to the lie, yeah.
Let's
It's
try
on
to keep
video.
the personal insults
I'm
out
sure
of it.
people have- it's-
I know they play well to the crowd, Jesse, but let's keep the personal insults out of it.
I'm stating, Matt,
See,
excuse me,
it
excuse
does.
me.
A little decorum from you would be nice, too.
I think, like I said, Richard Lemur called it socialism to fund the library at a level funding. It's on video. Anyone can see it on social media. It's not a lie. So go ahead and do that if you like. Matt Mannix spoke to Go Local Providence and said, I am looking out for all the residents, all the Narragansett taxpayers, not just the loudest ones. So we can evaluate how this cut helps the taxpayers in Narragansett. So let's take a look at the numbers here. By cutting $441,000 from the budget, $266,000 were then transferred over to Parks and Rec and to a few other departments. That left $188,000 from that $441,000 cut. Matt, Jill, and Ricky decided to split that $188,000 and put $94,000 back as a budget cut. So you're basically saving the taxpayers $94,000 for the year. For every $50,000 in the budget, it costs the taxpayers 1 penny per thousand on their taxes. So 94,000 were a little less than 2 cents per thousand. For a family that owns a $500,000 house in Narragansett, which is unfortunately kind of the average here, that's $10 per year on your taxes. If your house is $400,000, you're saving $8 a year. So less than $1 a month, 75 cents a month. So this cut to the library is saving homeowners, the average homeowner, 75 cents a month. So that's the tax savings that these counselors are worried about. What it's also going to do is take Narragansett out of the library network in the state so that as a library user in Narragansett with a, with a card, you will not be able to request books from other libraries in the state. You'll only be able to use books at this library. So that's another effect. I think I'm happy to spend 75 cents a month to have that service. Christy, do you mind? I just have a couple questions for you. Chris, sorry. Thank you. I just want to verify a couple things with you for the numbers. This is my first budget session, so I just want to make sure I'm reading all the line items correctly. I'm looking at page 120 from the audit from last year.
Okay.
And, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, great. So I know that the reason given for these for this cut was that the library has its fund reserve, and why would you leave a fund reserve sitting there? So of course it should be cut. That's the reason being given. I was looking at other departments, and the Towers Committee, which I support, just trying to be, consistent here, has a unreserved fund balance of $399,036. Is that right?
That is in the audit statement as of June 30th, 2018, correct?
Okay, all right. So that's kind of similar reserve as the library in terms of the characteristic of that money. It sits in a reserve. That was not brought up at the end of the budget workshop as something that was a consideration of being cut. And then I was looking at the board for the towers, and Matt Mannix and Ricky Lima are the liaisons from the town council for the Towers Committee. When you were in the meeting when you put together the agenda for the budget workshop, right? You, Laura, Matt?
For the agenda for the budget workshop?
Yeah, like how the 3 nights are going to go, the order of the departments?
No, I did not.
You were not in that, okay.
I was not.
All right.
Neither one of us was.
Council President, if I may, that's actually my executive assistant sent out a notice to all department heads and asked, what nights work best for people, and we kind of figured it out that way.
Okay, thank you. So the last night of the meeting, we kind of wrap it up. Thanks, Chris. I just wanted to confirm that reserve there. The last night of the meeting, we wrap it all up and we discuss what departments can be cut. Very small conversation here. The only things that were brought up were the school and the library. Even though the Towers has a huge reserve, that wasn't brought up. So it's just interesting how we sit there as a council in this workshop, and then the last 10 minutes of the meeting, that just pops into the agenda as what is up for discussion. No other departments, just those. There wasn't a decision that I was informed that was going to be had. It's just kind of coordinated in that way. So that's kind of, I guess what I'm trying to say is this is the way that these workshops work. It's very opaque. It's really orchestrated by one person on the council. And
Jesse, that's just not true.
Is that true?
I've served for 7 years for 6 or 7 budgets. The whole budget work session is the most transparent part of the process. That's where every department comes forward and shares what they justify their budget. To describe that as some closed process that's a lot of people don't attend them. That's fair to say, and I've always said people should attend the budget workshops. I've encouraged. I know people have heard me say it from here, the dais. It's the most important part of our job, but I don't know. I mean, we go through the line items. We go through all the difference between an enterprise fund and a department. We go through all those things, and that's one of the reasons with the Towers Committee. That's an enterprise fund. It brings money in. And then money is paid, those salaries are paid out of that. It's not an allocation from the taxpayers. There's no allocation, so it's very misleading to say, oh, that should go back to the taxpayers because it never came from them. There is an allocation that's gone to the library, and there's an allocation, and they have kept that surplus. They have a $686,000 surplus.
So we don't give the Towers Committee a $50,000 capital improvements
The last 3 years, we have not.
But is it? They have said no to it, but that is something that we are scheduled to do, correct?
We can do it, and we didn't.
And every year they say they want it or they don't want it.
And then we have a discussion about that.
Yeah, so that is something
very open, actually. It's an extremely open discussion.
I'm not talking about the line-by-line item discussion. I'm talking about the planning of those 3 nights. So at the end of the meeting, we have 3 council members who are on the exact same page on exactly how much to cut in that library budget. How does that happen?
On Tuesday night, we could have had that discussion, right? On Tuesday night was the first. Well, on Tuesday night, if you recall, on Tuesday night was when the library board made it clear they didn't want to use the money at the existing site. That's where we learned that. And we could have had that discussion there, and some people in the council, some councils will go through, some people will go through the budget work sessions, and you go through each department, and you make your decisions as you go along. And I've sat in those situations. I've sat in the audience before I was elected where I saw some people say, the council president at the time said, there should be one tax increase, and then we gear it toward that. In this case, it didn't seem like the council members really wanted to go through each department. So I basically, at the end, I have to do it because we have to present something here. So that's when I asked, what are we doing for OPEB? What are we doing for the school? What are we doing for the library? Are there any capital projects that people want to add or cut? It has to be done at some point. It's either done throughout, it's been done both ways.
Okay,
and I've been in the room when it's been done, but so I don't understand the problem with that. I mean, did you not want us to? What did you want? Just to rubber stamp what was there?
My question was, how was this budget cut? How are you 3 on the same page regarding the exact number of this budget cut when it was never discussed before?
We weren't.
You were.
There was proposed, if you remember, Ricky said you could go down to 342. And then I said, is there a number that you would like to put forward? And then there was a discussion about that, and then we make a decision.
Okay, so the last 4 or 5 years, this has never come up as an issue where you're going to cut the library budget in half. This year it came up and was dealt with as if it was completely expected.
I don't
There
remember.
was a I don't know. There was a surplus, and there's a discussion what to do with the surplus. That's what the whole point
they've
of the
they've
work
had a
session.
surplus, right?
But
That was
there's
the
never
whole
been
point.
discussion about that before.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering
that's
how
the
that
key
happened
thing.
this year.
Well, during the budget, as you recall, we asked about the surplus, what's the surplus number? It was revealed to us. Actually, I remember Patty Ackright saying she was surprised by that dollar amount as well, which was kind of scary, saying that they didn't really have a hold on their finances. But I've only been in one other previous I've only been in one other previous budget meeting before that, too, I'm sorry, but we've never talked about this. So this was a new thing. So I mentioned that this was new to have this surplus. The towers, you mentioned the towers, is interesting. The towers actually uses their money that they have to repair. Dave didn't go into it tonight, but they have a major project that they will be repairing in the towers, building as an exit to make it more safe to go down where the ramp is. So they'll be using that money that's in that account for that, whereas something that's different is the surplus that we found in the library account. We had asked, why had that not been used to repair the library? One thing that was uncovered also during the budget was the town council, after Superstorm Sandy, had given an allocation of $50,000 for the roof for the library, and it wasn't used. It was just kept in that capital account. So those are things that we hadn't talked about in previous budget meetings that we were made aware of at last Tuesday through Thursday at the meetings.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that reserve is twofold. I think the one that I've heard is that there have been plans to move the library to the Belmont building for years. So they're putting that money in reserve to use for that new project. And it wouldn't make much sense to repair an old building. So that's the one. And I think that Ricky actually asked during the meeting why the library doesn't put money aside like other departments do as a reserve. Which they clearly do.
But it's a surplus, it's not a reserve, it's a different thing.
Is it? What makes it different?
It's different because it's not an enterprise fund. It's a surplus. They haven't been using the money that's allocated to them, so there's a surplus of taxpayer dollars. So taxpayers, we as a town have been giving this library a certain amount of dollar amount every single year, taxpayer dollar, and they haven't been using it. They've been stalling, they've been stacking it away, squirreling it away, whatever term you want to use, but they have a very large amount of money of taxpayer dollars available. It's a different story. It's not an enterprise fund, Jesse. They're not supposed to be doing that.
I just want to clarify that. It's a little misleading. The last year.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not misleading
I'll
at all.
explain how it's misleading.
Well, it's not misleading, Jesse. That's a fact.
Can
There's a
I
surplus
speak
of
and
information.
maybe explain that?
Well,
Thank you. So there is a surplus. Last year, it actually went down by $22,000. The library did not have a excess. They actually had a deficiency in their budget. Part of the reason for that is that the previous town council took 2 pensions away from library employees. So the library is putting money aside for those pensions. So they actually were negative last year, so that reserve is going down, not up. And this year, the projection is that it's going to go down another $77,000. So that's going to lower that surplus even further. So this is not being built up currently. Last year, this year, that reserve will go down. And now it's going to go instantly down by $144,000. So soon they'll have no reserve. And the question is, what happens at that point? If they're going over their budget and then there is no reserve and no state funding, that's where there's going to be big trouble. So it's just really a lack of planning by this council and a lack of long-term vision to the effects that this is going to have. So.
Thank you. Anyone else from the council?
Yeah, Rick. I just want to say that, the library board of trustees, they're kind of a hybrid, quasi-town, state, they're a different entity. They're not an enterprise fund, and they're not a town department. I mean, they kind of got their own autonomy when it comes to finances. So I commend them for having a reserve, because the battle plan was They were building a war chest because the battle plan was to move to the Belmont space, refit the building, and they had a reserve for incidentals or emergencies or some kind of other contingency. So I commend them for having that reserve, saving taxpayer money. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ricky?
So let's start off with, at that same meeting, Mr. Pugh said F you to Rick Lima, and that's on the record as well.
No, it's not on the record.
is.
It's not on
Yes,
any.
it is.
Not
Yes,
true,
it
Rick.
is.
It's not true, and you know
Yes,
it.
it is.
It's not.
Don't interrupt.
So let's start with the budget. Let's start with the budget. The budget for the library each year is funded $1,028,597. If you look at the expenditures of the library, it's roughly about $885. I'm rounding up. They have a fund balance of $686,443. They have a building that needs repair. Now, excuse me, if you're going to speak out, please leave. So, I'm talking, I've listened to everybody else, now listen to me, please. So their balance, they have a fund balance of $686,443. When you take that off the $1,028,597, you actually come up with $342,154. Now the argument is the library won't have enough money to operate if they're cut. The amount of money that we were willing to, and it was only a proposal, to give them was $400,000 on the $686,000 that they already have, which would give them $1,086,443 to operate the library. Now you're out there telling us you can't operate the library on $1,086,000 because you don't want to use the fund balance. So let's say the library chooses to go somewhere else. Do the taxpayers really want to be responsible for fixing up a building that they already gave money in a budget that should have been fixed? I just don't get that. I would not want to be in that situation, nor would I put anybody in that situation. So let me continue on with this. $885,000 to run the library, and $1,086,000 isn't enough to do it? If you subtract the numbers, there's plenty there, and in 2019, in December, I believe they will get their state funding, which is $187,492. They will receive that. Excuse me.
Yes, you will.
It's the following year, I believe, you don't get it.
Yeah, 2020.
2020, you don't get it.
December 2020.
It's December. Let me finish. Excuse me, Wynn.
Let's keep some decorum.
So there are two options here. We need to fix the building. We need to bring it up to date. It's going to cost X amount of dollars to do that. You want your 841 so that you can get state funding? All right, I'm not going to disagree with that. But out of the fund balance, we're going to need the money to fix that building up to date because that's what it was there for. Library is supposed to maintain that building. So you want 841, the 103? I have no problem with that. I'm going to need $600,000 to put into that building and bring it up to where it needs to be. You still get your state funding, and we get the money to be able to bring that building, which is a town building, taxpayer money, budgeted year after year, to keep that building where it is. So there's your other alternative.
All right, thank you. So the council, we're going to see if there's members of the public, Patty, and then the council come back to the council.
Thank you. I just wanted to answer a couple of questions that have been going around about the budget.
Number one, Jill, I did say we were surprised how much was there. I spoke with the finance director in January when we met with her to discuss budgets. We were told we had $500,000, not the $700,000. So we're not really clear as to where all that money came from between January and now. We have put money aside for the building that we thought we were buying and that we thought we would be repairing. And that's why there's money, as you call, a surplus. It's not a surplus. Money was put aside to use for that purpose. The other thing, as we have said before, is the pensions. We have budgeted for the people that we hired to fill the children's librarian and the reference position, which have always been given pensions for as long as I've been there. And then they were decided not to give them back when we hired new people. So that money, again, has been budgeted over the past few years in hopes that we would come up with a solution for that. So that pension money really, in our eyes, cannot be spent because that is put aside for the solution of offering our full-time MLS librarians a pension. The other thing is that, yes, today we're not a department, but tomorrow we are a department. That keeps floating around back and forth. The state has us designated as a separate entity that the board operates, and the money comes from the town, and it's up to us how to spend it. I should say up to the board how to spend it. And I do put my input into preparing that budget. And we do our best to spend what we can, but like everything else, I budget for heat, and we don't use all that money. I budget for extra people in case I need them over the summer. If I don't need those extra people, that money doesn't get used. So again, it's not an irresponsible budget that we've done over the years. It's something that we've planned, but getting the information from the finance director, again, is sometimes a challenge. The other thing I want to ask is about the school department. That's a separate budget. They have a surplus, as you call it, but you didn't ask them to use that for their operating budget. They have used it before for the athletic, the athletic field. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. That you have asked them to use that for the athletic field, but not for operating. Operating is very important, and we do service over 10,000 people a month at that library, and every penny we spend goes to something valuable for the community. So I'm just asking you to please look at this budget and to reestablish the full funding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on. So, Matt.
Who's up? Go ahead.
So if we funded the library, the 400,000 with the 686, that would give them $1,086,000. It would be more than what the budget was last year. If you yes, it would.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie. I know you've been sent messages. The numbers don't lie, and so it's that.
Last year you were funded $1,028,597. 400,000 on the 686 brings you to $1,086,443. It's a little bit of a difference, okay? If you take the operating expense of the library, last year, 884, let's call it 885, and we give you the $1,086,443, you'll actually have an extra $201,000. So, I don't know. I guess you don't want that.
And is there anyone from the public? David.
I believe the numbers that you're telling me are correct. What I'm a little bit confused by is this. Mr. Lima said, no, we won't lose the state funding this year of $180,000. We'll lose it next year. Now, I am not an accountant, but when I hear $180,000 on an additional $400 a $400,000 allocation, I want to know where I can put that money, because I have $400,000 that if in 1 year I can get $180,000, I'd be glad to do that. So are you prepared to take the hit next year and then have to make up even more? It makes no sense to me from a fiscal standpoint. I understand that it's been a surplus, a reserve, I don't care what you call it. Long before I was here, for the past 10 years, the town councils have been asking the library to jump through hoops to look at building or moving the library or renovating the current library. It's prudently responsible to have a reserve for that kind of work and not have to come to the town in the middle of a building project to throw in an additional $50,000 or $100,000 when you discover something is not working.
So
if you're going to cut the money, I understand that the reserve can cover that. But I don't understand what you think is going to happen next year when another $181,000 doesn't show up, when we could have gotten that money from the state. I just saw you approve $100,000 for the block grant. This makes sense. That $180,000 from the state is free money. To throw it away is fiscally irresponsible, and I can't believe the town council is that fiscally responsible.
So,
Thank you.
let me answer. So again, it would seem the logic would be for us to fund you the 841, right? And then you get your reimbursement of 187,000. And in the process, we bring that building that you're in now up to date. It needs, well, if it's too small based on whatever plan is written for a library, if the library chooses to be there. And that's the truth. It's based on a plan that is written out by the library board, okay? Hold on, excuse me. It's based on a plan. If you want to get OLIS down here, that's what they will tell you, okay? The other factor in here is this. If we choose to do something with that building, who's going to pay to repair it? You think the new tenants coming in are going to repair that building? No, taxpayers are. Come on, Patrick, nobody's going in there repairing that building.
If a commercial entity goes in there, they'll probably refit the whole building to fit their needs. We'd probably have to give them some kind of, free lease for like 6 months or something. That's usually the way it works.
Well, you're crazy if you think that's going to happen. It's not.
All right, we're going to come back to the council, but we're going to have the public weigh in on the budget. So, Dr. Alba.
Thank you. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett, Rhode Island. I think we have to sit back and look at what's been stated. We have a library board which already stated that the existing building is not adequate. We had an engineer, licensed engineer, write an outstanding report saying the existing building is not adequate. So to put money on something which has already been deemed inadequate, to me, could be considered, as they stated, wasting our money instead of keeping that money in reserve and using it for, hopefully, a new building. Also, I was really puzzled when I heard about comments about people not being willing to, the people who are needy not being willing to be able to spend the extra money because of a tax increase. As we know, the tax is a progressive tax. A tax on real estate is progressive. So people who own smaller houses, their real estate tax will be hit that much less. Also, when you go to a library, who can get the greatest benefits from a library? Those who are needy, those who cannot buy laptops and computers, who cannot buy books, who cannot go to movie nights, because the Showcase Cinema, it's $13 and when you're buying popcorn and everything else. I actually went to the Tiverton Library. I have a video. I'll gladly show you the video on the tour I took at Tiverton Library and show you the beauty that's in that library and show you how we can make good use of the entire new building.
Please direct your comments to me.
So I would gladly send that video to all of you, and I think it'll be an eye-opener where we'll be able to use all the rooms, even the upstairs, and we'll be able to benefit everyone. And also, like I said, I think to make a comment saying that the needy won't be able to afford the increase in taxes is just incomprehensible to me, because the benefits are going to far outweigh any additional cost the needy are going to be having to pay for increase in taxes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy LaPasta Frazier, 71 West Bay. I watched the video of last week's budget meeting several times, and I was struck by the lack of any discussion focusing on the repercussions of such a drastic cut to the library's funding. I saw some adding and subtracting of numbers, some name-calling initiated by Mr. Lima, and then a vote. In the vindictive rush to obtain a pound of flesh from the employees of the library and their supporters in the community, you didn't give any thought to the collateral damage that you are creating. With this cut in funding, shut-ins won't be able to download e-books. The elderly will be forced to travel to the library during the winter instead of browsing the e-catalog in the comfort of their homes. The rest of us will be denied access to the intrastate library lending system that exists in Rhode Island. This means that the citizens of Narragansett will have to stand in line to borrow the 1 or 2 copies of popular or timely books housed in our own library, translating into potential wait times of a year or more. Now, you may argue that we could utilize neighboring libraries. I think you mentioned that, Mr. Lima. But what good is that in light of the fact that our library cards will only be valid in Narragansett? Why are you casting us into the role of poor relations, relying on the kindness of strangers? Do you really think that neighboring towns are going to greet us with open arms when we won't allow them to buy beach passes? At the end of the video, an agreement was made to decrease the tax rate by 2 cents. That would be laughable if it wasn't so pathetic and insulting. Do you really think that you can buy off the residents of Narragansett with pennies? I can't answer for anyone else, but you most certainly can't buy my integrity for pennies. In this bag are the pennies you want me to keep, but I won't accept your blood money. Do I have permission to give you back those pennies? May I approach?
You can give it to the clerk.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Well, let's see if there's other people who want to talk.
Rachel Weiss-Smith, Conyer, 5 Judith Ave. I'm here to, I guess, represent the needy people that you are making assumptions about. I'm not needy anymore, but when I left my abusive husband 10 years ago with my 2 children, one of them already spoke on how important the library had been to us, and my other one is sitting right there. I didn't have money to do anything, but I bundled my kids into our double stroller and we walked to the library all the time, year-round, and we read books together, and they played with the puppets and the trains. It was a very special place to us. It was where we went. And then before their father abandoned them for good, I had their supervised visitations there, court-ordered, because it was the one and only safe place in this community that was public that we could do that type of thing in. Every community needs some place like this that's safe for the people, for the children, for the single mothers, for the disabled people who go there. I've heard stories from people whose children go there 5 days a week. I've been there with my kids. I know the faces. We still go there. There are people that this is their place. This is their safe place. And a library is the cornerstone to every healthy community. You can't have one without it. So I'll be here, and I'll speak on the behalf of the people who aren't here right now, who you're making assumptions about where we want to spend our tax money. This is where I want to spend my tax money. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I recognize the man in green.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dr. Robert Ireland, 70 Avis Street, Narragansett. I don't understand why you would take any steps that could potentially jeopardize this building. This town is one of the busiest libraries in the state. Why would you do anything that would jeopardize my access to ebooks, my access to interlibrary loans, which I do all the time? Why would you take something that's a family-friendly place in what's supposed to be a family-friendly town and destroy it? That is my question to you.
Thank you. It doesn't jeopardize the building. As you've gone through the numbers, again, the numbers don't lie. Last year, it was 841 with 180 from the state, 841,000 with 180,000 from the state, 180,000 from the state. This year, there's a surplus of 686, and then our allocation is 400. That's a larger number. So nothing is being jeopardized. The surplus, if every town department carried this kind of surplus, and the Towers is not a town department, if police, fire, community development carried these kind of surpluses, we would have huge tax increases. It would be very bad from a fiscal standpoint. So, and this whole thing about the transferability of the books and the clan cards, which we all take advantage of. If you can't get a book, you go to Peacedale because they may have it. We've all done that. The 180 that we're not taking, it would be strange for Olis to turn around and then say, we're not giving you the 180, but yet we're going to talk about vindictive, we're going to then not let you be part of the clan card sharing program. So that would be, yes, they have the power to do that. That would be a huge abuse of power, and I would speak out against it.
So just for the record, we just heard Matt say that the library is a town department. That was just publicly said. So that's on the record, and when the board works on getting their pensions back, you can use that. So, thanks.
Because that's really what it's all about, isn't it? It's not about governing. I want everyone to know that. Everyone at home, this is not about governing with these people. This is you put out one-liners and then you attack. That's what happens, and that's what goes on. That's why you wanted the work sessions taped, but you've selectively put out pieces from the work session. Nobody's talked about the Tuesday night where the library board was intransigent. No one's had that conversation. So I want everyone to be clear about what's going on. And that's what it's about. It's about a gotcha game of politics. And it's changed since I first started. It's sad to watch, actually. It's really sad.
Again, Mal Goldenberg, 25 Earls Court. Like there was a gentleman up here who said he was not an accountant. I am. And the one thing I learned a long time ago is that you can, as opposed to what Mr. Lima said, you can make numbers lie. He states that with the reduced funding and using the surplus or reserve or whatever you want to call it, that you'll have more money than you would have in the prior year, and that may very well be true. But that $600,000 will be gone If his condition is that we should, allocate the full amount and take that reserve and put it into refurbishing the old building, which has been deemed to be unusable for a library, it's like putting you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. And that's what you have there for a building. I think what we have here is we have the proverbial cart in front of the horse. I think if we go back to, what I said before about letting the architects come into the building, see what we have, and at that point, the council making a decision as far as what we should do going forward, this may very well be a subject for next year, but not this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Patty, I'd like to see if there's anyone before, because it'll be your second time up, so can we...
I just wanted to explain how the funding works, because it seems like that's something that people are asking about, the state funding, when it takes effect, how we get it, that kind of thing.
From the statute, yes. We'll have Mark go through that from the state statute. Yeah,
I was
the
gonna
maintenance
explain
of effort.
From how the library has to apply for that.
And they'll usually do it in the fall.
September 15th, we submit it, and then it's approved, and it's for the current year, fiscal 20. And we get it in 2 quarters, come all at once, and then we get a 3rd and 4th quarter payment throughout the year. But it's OLIS pays for the delivery system of the books. However, OSL is one of the consortium that has policies also. I did fax or email to Sean OSL's policy, which simply states that if we can't meet minimum standards, which would be hard with a lower budget, then we would lose services from OSL, meaning we can't borrow books from other libraries, therefore no delivery service. That's how I was explained by those people.
Thank you.
And I was going to ask if you wanted to hear this, but I assumed you wanted to. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm aware of it. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, come forward.
Good evening. My name's Jessica Wilson. I live at 20 Checkerberry Trail in Narragansett. I'm a Narragansett resident, but I'm a librarian in another town. And my library career has been based in interlibrary loan. So I understand the importance of the library delivery service, the fact that everybody in the state shares books. It's like we're one big library. We all share resources. And not only with public libraries, but we have access to resources of academic and hospital libraries as well. I would just hate to see my own town cut that ability for so many people who live here, who use the library. Narragansett is one of the most used libraries in the town, not only for circulation of books, ebooks, but the Narragansett Library does a fantastic amount of programming, and those programs are well attended by members of the Narragansett community, and people from other towns come to them as well. So I would also draw your attention to a letter that was published in the Providence Journal on May 3rd by a librarian from West Warwick, which went through this exact same process a few years ago. The town council in West Warwick cut funding for that public library. I'm sorry, my voice is so tremulous. But her letter said, among other things, anything that results in less than level funding will trigger a complete loss of state funding for the library. And the result, a loss of state funding in West Warwick, resulted in a sharp decrease in hours of operation, reduced ability to purchase materials, limited program offerings, and loss of jobs. I also would like to say, I believe that library workers deserve a pension as much as other town workers do. And I would like to commend my colleague, Patty Arkwright, and all the librarians at Narragansett for the fine job that they do. And to quote from this letter, Ann Anesta in West Warwick says, "I hope that Narragansett Town Council members will learn from another town's foolhardy mistake." So I please ask you to consider reestablishing this amount to the library. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paulette Chambers, and I live at 40 Lambert Street. And I'm new to this, but I've been, going to the library since I first moved to Narragansett 40 years ago. And I have been proud of my library. And I'm just up here because I honestly don't understand why you're trying. It seems like you don't want to keep a library that we can be proud of, that educates people, that reaches out to people who don't have resources. We go to the library. I'm a senior citizen in my mid-70s. I go to the library because I can't afford to buy books that I read. I read a lot. And I also know I've been with numbers for a long time. I was a math major. I have a master's in math. I know about numbers. We've always said, you can make the numbers say anything you want. I know that. I've done it to show people. And Mr. Lima, I don't understand. You're saying you're going to give them...
Please keep your comments to me. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't understand when Mr. Lima said somehow you're going to be giving $1 million something or others to the library? And is that adding in that, whatever was in that reserve, surplus, whatever you want to call it? So you're not really giving them that money. You're asking them to use the money that they have saved for pensions, that they have saved for trying to keep the library functioning in a good way. I don't get it. I honestly am truly confused. I saw this in the paper a while back, and I said, this is all going to change. You don't need to get involved in this. And I can't believe it continues to go on. I am ashamed of Narragansett. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Two in the back, Catherine, and I don't know who's second. Oh, it's Stan.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. Are we still talking about the library? Can we talk about other parts of the budget also?
You can talk about anything in the budget. Okay. It's a public hearing on the budget.
First, Jesse, thank you for standing with the Stop and Shop workers. But
try to keep the comments to me.
Oh, sorry. I meant to email you that. I did email you that. In any event, the whole budget has ballooned. We're talking about some serious increases. And the school department is one of those departments that has shown some increases. They have a program for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. It's a preschool education program. I'm not quite sure what it's about. But when I heard about it, I was told that it was going to be directed toward the low-income children in town and those who had special education needs. But this program has morphed into something completely different. There's a lot of kids in this program whose parents can well afford regular, I don't want to say daycare, Dr. Cummings doesn't like that word, but other programs where they would get preschool education, that type of thing. And I know that you agreed to add 10 positions to that program from 50 to 60, but Dr. Cummings told me that they're going to go up to 90 positions. I'm not sure where they're finding the money, but that they've decided to accommodate everyone on their waiting list. Now, he's at an athletic some kind of thing today, and I want to know where this money's going to come from, because right now, even with those 50 kids, we're talking about a serious deficit this program is running, because they're charging a very low price, and they're putting St. Peter's out of business and other early education programs, that's like, I guess you call it, programs. And if it's for low-income kids in town, and we certainly have enough of them, or if it's for children that do need special education services, then I'm all for it, and I mean for free. They shouldn't be charged anything. But this is not what's happening. We have like all these kids in the school that are model kids, and it's just turned into something different. But like I said, they're going to go up to 90 kids, and I don't know where they're going to get that money. And here's something else. I looked at the school department budget, and there's nothing in there about a resource officer for the elementary school. That elementary school is going to have a public bike path running behind it. We need a full-time resource officer for the elementary school, and I don't see it in the school department budget. And I think rather than find money for 90 kids, they've got to do something about this. I just don't think it's safe for those kids to go to that school. Little kids, now we're talking about 3- and 4-year-olds that are in this school with a public bike path running in the back of it. So I think the school department budget is a little bit of an adjustment. I would hope that you talk to them about it and see what can work out.
Thank you, Catherine. Oh, Stan, and then Meg.
Stan Wojciechowski, Narragansett. I attended those work sessions, as you know, and I listened to some very professional department heads speak about their budget, and I was impressed. I think that I couldn't discover any errors in their plans or serious errors, and therefore, I don't think that we need to have serious surpluses in all these departments. And I know, with all respect to the finance department, I know that they want to make sure that they got things covered. So they're going to want to maximize the surplus as high as possible so we're not in a jam. But I also heard that here we are looking at 12% surplus, and I thought that there was a 10% minimum that was quoted by finance. So I really want to push to get to that 10%. Let's get closer to 10%, only because we have a staff that's so good. They're not going to make mistakes. It's going to cost us money. So right now, my thing is we can cut 2% off our budget just by dealing with the surpluses. And I want to thank you for bringing up about surpluses. That made me think about surpluses. That's a serious error that we don't need to have here. I suggest that you go back to every department head and ask them to cut their surplus by 2%, and then tell me or tell us what we will lose if they lose their 2%. Let's see some serious problem there. If there's no serious problem, I want to see another 2% reduction in our budget. Fiscal responsibility, and this is kind of the first time that I've heard the council get really serious about the taxpayer and covering expenses. Everybody talks about it, but I can see there's some serious discussions about taxpayers and taxpayer dollars, and I just want to focus on a big amount, which is the surplus, and we can deal with the library as time goes on. Again, just like I remember that the towers used to always get $50,000. Oh, they always asked for $50,000. We always gave it to them. Well, now they got a $400,000 surplus, so they were kind enough not to go and ask us for surplus. We didn't have to give them the $50,000. And that's kind of almost where this library is. They got a surplus there, and they're still asking for money. I mean, if they're really in trouble for money later on, I'm sure you will take money out of your surplus to cover their issue if they have a serious issue. If they have a serious issue now, I'm sure that's what surpluses are for. But do we have to cover it ahead of time? I'm not so sure.
Thank you, Stan.
I want to know the details first. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Yes.
Thank you, Matthew. Since I have to address myself to you, first off, I just want to thank Councilman Pugh for trying to dig away and ferret out the truth there about how this cut came about, because I want my friends in the audience to be perfectly aware that, and this is why we're all here. I mean, they teach me this. We're all here because we know this is punitive and preordained. We know it's premeditated. And the reason we know that is that, as I understand it, Mr. Lima asked for a meeting with the OLIS people back in December of 2018, and I believe Ms. Lawler was present at that meeting, and I believe he asked in 2018, what happens if we were to cut the library budget? So that happened. So it was premeditated and preordained. And just in the midst of this, I want to leave you with the words of Bill Gates' father, who, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have donated millions upon millions of dollars to small-town libraries because they believe in them so greatly. And at an address he gave, he encouraged people in local governance to, in the midst of their budget debates, our government officials need to know that there is no place where the public gets more for its money than at the public library. Where else can the purchase of one book give 100 people a chance to read that book? Where else can the purchase of 6 computers offer 600 people of all ages a chance to use a computer? Please, please don't do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a budget hearing, so my comments may seem a little misplaced, but I am a resident.
What's your name and address?
My name is Michael Sylvia. I am a 20-year resident of South Kingstown. And let me say this. Today, in this day, on this day, I have been in Middletown Public Library, Newport Public Library, and Narragansett Public Library. And Narragansett is the jewel in the crown of this town, and it's one of the best libraries in the entire state. For the size, it is the best. And you people, all right, I'm gonna finish real quick. This here is a pass worth $40 to go in Doris Duke's house. $40, 2 adults. I got it at Newport Public Library. I can keep it for a week, okay? This is a small token of the services available in the public library for people that can't afford. And Narragansett has things that the big libraries don't provide. You people come to South Kingstown and see. Narragansett is a special place, and the library needs to remain a special place. And it's very short-sighted historically. Double the budget. Double it. Don't cut it. You, I'm addressing you, sir. Double it. You force your citizens to go elsewhere for services, and homeless people and poor people, that you don't ask a person's name in the public library. They come in the door. This is America. You see that flag? Okay. All right. I said enough.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I'm Marianne Cronley, 82 Harbor Island Road, and I spoke to a friend who worked for the State Department of Library Services, and it does sound like not only do you lose the state's financial support if the town shows lack of support for their own library, but you also lose the services they provide. And I think Narragansett Library would be really handicapped if we try to go on it ourselves without CLAN and the services that the state library supports. I think it would be a very bad way to save money. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mary.
Mary Nato, 10 Second Street, Narragansett. I just have an overall budget question. I know the library's budget was caught in the proposed budget, but what other departments were caught?
We went through that with the finance director. She showed
She-
showed the summary of that.
I don't think there was any other cuts, and I know other departments have reserves, like the school department, and theirs weren't taken away. So it does seem like the library was a subject of punitive cuts in budget.
We got that message from you, but it wasn't.
Thank you.
Thank
But
you.
it would be nice if they could publish a percentage of reduction on the budget for all the departments. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, let me speak 1 second.
Go ahead.
So as people want to talk about the budget, all the departments in the town, before they even come to budget hearings with the council, sit with the town manager. And he sits with each individual department and makes cuts before they even get to us. And if you look at the history of this town, all the other departments take cuts. Some years it's over $1 million. I can tell you in the DPW department that if they brought everything to the table, it would be a substantial number. So they choose a lot of times not to keep repeating the $400,000 in road maintenance that they're not getting. $750 was recommended to be allocated, but they're only getting $350 of it. That's been going on for 6 years, so they're $2.4 million behind the 8 ball on that. When the buses went over to DPW, a proposed building was to be put up as being able to shelter the equipment that this town owns. And during the months of when the weather is bad, if they had to go in and work on a vehicle that they could work on quickly, they would be able to do it under a covering. That building never got to the front door. That was $250,000. So the equipment now sits outside because the buses are in the building. And that's fine, because we do need to work on our buses. So as we sit here and talk about cuts, every department takes cuts before they even get to us. And over the course of the last 4, 5, 6 years, millions of dollars each year are cut from all the other departments. We talked tonight about the library having cuts. I don't choose to cut it. I'll give you your 841. Help us out a little bit with refurbishing the building that is there. Help us with it, okay? That's all we're asking. Just give us a little bit of help. I'm not going to go back to the taxpayer and ask them for more money to put a roof or bring that building up to code where it needs to be, to today's standards. That's all we're asking. I'm asking. Thank you.
The town manager did not recommend cuts to the library, so I'm not really sure this line of comment. That's not.
I didn't mention that he made cuts to the library, did I?
You said every department makes.
No, every department except for the library has been cut in the last year. All the departments added up is over $1 million.
And it wasn't
the library's
recommended.
never been cut in the last 10 years.
And it wasn't
Ever.
recommended. Okay.
Ever, okay?
And it wasn't recommended.
So the town manager only makes cuts to town departments. That's why, Jesse.
Yeah, Matt said this is a town department, right?
He did
It's not a town department.
not,
The
okay.
solicitors will tell you that.
Got it. And I do believe the town residents already approved the bond for the new library. So the idea that you're asking the town taxpayers to pay for renovations for the old library, it just doesn't make any sense. We had a vote. They approved 5.8. What?
Where's your vote? Vote on what? What'd you vote on? You keep mentioning 67% of the people voted for a bond.
Yep.
A bond.
Yep.
Not the Belmont building.
Okay, so what's the
There's 12,557 voters. So are you disregarding the other 72,000 people, the 7,000 people that didn't vote?
That's how it works.
That didn't vote?
That's how it works.
Oh, so you don't really care about them?
If you don't vote, yeah.
Wow,
What?
you don't really care?
We go by the percentage of
That's
people that
interesting.
voted.
That's really interesting that you don't care about them.
Are you being, is this, this is serious, are you're.
This is, in 2016, we're all aware of what happened. We've heard that line. We're very aware. We seem to ignore what happened in 2018.
What happened?
We seem to ignore that there was a whole election since then, that people's opinions on the ground shifted regarding this issue, that people were sharing.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stop with the outbursts.
Because, please stop with the outbursts. Let's listen to some facts for once, please, okay? In 2018, there was an election in which there were 7 people. 4 of the names were on the Belmont sign. The Democratic Town Committee campaigned heavily for 3 of them. It was made a huge political issue. I took the position that I thought the library deal was bad and it should be repealed. I said in that campaign, I think people's opinions are shifting on this. Many people came to me and they said that their opinion had shifted on this and they were concerned. That's what elections are for. So then what happened is we had a change in the council's membership in the 2018 election. It's like we ignore that election which happened and where opinions and arguments took place. And so then it was still a very split council, but it was not a mandate. No one came close to the 5106 votes that the bond got in 2016. No one came remotely close to that. So it was that was what the campaign was about. And if I had lost, I would have said, that's the people want to go forward with what I think was a blank check for the Belmont building. But I said, and the people did re-elect me, and it's consistent with my prior vote totals.
What place did you come in?
It was consistent. You win a seat, again, an at-large election is not a one-on-one election, right? There's people in this room who've won on one-on-one elections. When people campaign in an at-large election, they're trying to get a seat. The 5th place person is the same as the 1st place person. It's always been, it is. They both get a seat. Listen, it's an election fact. You can scream and yell about it and grandstand, but that's how elections work. It's not a one-on-one election. Some people campaign and they try to get a top 5 position. That's what they do. That's how an election, it's a different election than a one-on-one election like a General Assembly election. So, but we'll go forward. I know there's more people who want to come, so please come forward.
Hi, Samuel Judd, Reference and Information Services Librarian. In January, we held a forum at the library in which Ricky Lima stated, "No one in this room voted for me, so I don't need to listen to any of you." So I think it's funny that he is saying, so many people didn't vote in this election, what about them? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Stephen Bellis, 8 Baldwin Court, Narragansett. Back in January, I heard Councilman Lima say that he was in favor of a state-of-the-art library, something similar to Tivertown, and he would have an RFP to present within 2 weeks. I'm still waiting for that. That hasn't happened. And now tonight, he's talking about refurbishing the old building. Okay, so that's a huge contradiction. Number 2, I also have an undergraduate degree in accounting, and what's going on here in this budget is very disingenuous. I've seen it 100 times in corporate America. If you want to kill something, you cut the budget, you cut the resources, and next year, that's your new starting point. So we could see what you're doing here. We could see right through it. I just don't understand who your handlers are in this town. And people, really, I can't believe the 3 of you.
I don't have handlers.
Oh, I believe it. I believe you do. I believe you do. People.
I don't have handlers. So thank you for your beliefs, but I don't. Okay. Thank you.
I'm entitled to my beliefs in my 3 minutes.
Good.
Okay. Anyway, there's a lot of people in this town that I've come across that don't want that some of them are against the library. They're not even residents here. They're out of state. They own properties here. Maybe there's someone from Naples, or there's someone from Sedona, or some other place in Florida or California. They don't live here all year round. I do. Okay, people voted on this. We want a library. It's time for you guys to put up.
Thank you.
Carleen Town, Wood Hill Road. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I just had one comment to make. We hear that, Mr. Mannix, a lot, people come to you and say they're against the library, they don't think it's fiscally responsible.
Not against the library, don't mischaracterize it. Against this very expensive project, right? I very much love the library, I grew up in it.
Do you not think that refurbishing a building that is unrefurbishable to make it a state-of-the-art library wouldn't be more expensive? But my point is, you keep talking about a silent majority, and I want to know where they are, because it is the vocal majority who is here all the time. And if you have so many people who are against the library moving to the Belmont building, I think maybe they should stand up and tell you, just as all of these fans are standing up and telling you what they do want.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Matt DeLillo, 43 Circuit Drive. I have a different topic than's been a popular one for tonight. Parks and Recreations, if I remember, it had an increase of $195,000. That's correct to the budget? Somewhere around there?
Somewhere around there.
Okay. So a couple of years ago, I was in a motorcycle accident, broke my back, and I was born and raised in South County. Beaches are part of our culture. We have some of the most beautiful beaches in the country, maybe in the world. And I really do miss going there. So I've looked up a few things, and I've heard in the past the Narragansett Town Beach had some sort of a carpet pathway they were able to roll out from the pavement from where that ends to the beach so you can get through that thick, heavy sand. Is that something the town was planning on doing this year? Do you know?
I did not see that specifically in the budget. It wasn't discussed.
So I did a little research. They're only a couple $1,000s. If the budget is significantly larger this year, I was really hoping that for myself, other people with disabilities, older folks, mothers with kids and strollers, really anybody, this benefits everybody. People really take it for granted. You have a couple free hours. You can just stroll down to the beach, catch a little bit of sun. It's awesome. For myself, I'd have to call a few friends, really orchestrate a show just to go get a little bit of sunlight. So I really was hoping that the town, the council, Parks and Recs, whoever the powers may be, can take into consideration this year doing something like that so myself and, like I said, everybody else can enjoy the beautiful beaches we have, because I really miss them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Steve Wright, could you respond to that? Because I do believe you have an answer.
Yes, good evening. We have, that's PathMat, and we use it every year. We've been using it for the last 5 years. It's at the South Pavilion and North Pavilion.
Thank you. Does anyone need to do anything special in order to use that, or how does it work?
No, it's available at both pavilions. We also have beach chairs with super tires on it, so it'll be able to go right up to the water. So we have both ADA access at both pavilions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yep.
Tom Hines, 14 Piping Plover Drive. Can we get the graphic back up that showed the chart for the funding for the library?
I'm glad somebody's paying attention.
Yes. Yeah. Perhaps you can interpret this for me. My understanding of listening to this conversation was that the way that the library is going to be dealt with was going to be to take its surplus and combine it with the $400,000, and that would give them an amount of money somewhere over $1 million to operate. But I noticed that that line is flatlined all the way out through the budget years out. And once the surplus is gone, how the hell is the library?
This is not my chart.
All right, well,
this is not the town's chart.
Not the town's chart.
Yeah,
No.
this is something I
This is
put.
an individual person on a council's chart.
So-
Councilman, individual councilman.
All right.
I think I got elected.
Okay, so the expectation would be that somehow with the surplus gone in the next year out, in order to create that budget at the proper level, operate the library, the money's going to have to come from somewhere anyway.
Right.
So that's not right.
Well, let
Right.
me just go over this and explain it, and then we'll give
He's not
everybody a
taking any of
sense.
my time, is he, the explanation?
Oh, well, you go ahead and finish. and then
Well,
I'll-
I just want another point of clarification, because before, I think I saw that we, the town, are going to do something on the order of $675,000 on cabanas, right?
Yes, in the budget,
How
yes.
many cabanas do we have?
There's,
36
no, it's 80, Steve, 88?
in that section.
It's in the high, it's
All
around
right,
90.
in the
yeah.
high 80s. So that's going to benefit 80 families, in essence? We're putting that kind of money into the budget to benefit the 80 families who will win the lottery or whatever it is that gets you into taking a cabana, as opposed to 10,000 people a month coming to the library?
But remember, that's an enterprise fund, it's not coming from the taxpayers.
I understand that. I'm just talking
So the
about
facts are important again, right? So the money does not come from the taxpayers, it comes from the beach fees because it's an
Well,
enterprise
that
fund.
675,000 that was in there is not part of the budget?
It's an enterprise fund in which
enterprise
the
fund.
money comes from the
Comes from
beach
the town.
fees
But, Matt,
that go.
Taxpayers.
I know you don't want to
go-
hear the facts, but
All right.
maybe that's why people should go to the work sessions on the budget, because then we talk about the difference between an enterprise fund and a department. But
I'm not as dumb as I look, all right?
I'm not saying you're dumb.
I
So
understand that,
again,
but I don't like being talked down to. So here's
I don't
the
need,
issue.
I don't like it
The
either.
issue is that in the budget, notwithstanding whether it's an enterprise fund or not, this council decided that $675,000 should be allocated to the benefit of about 90 families, no matter where the money came from.
That's right.
So my last point would be this. There's been a lot of interpretation of the election that occurred in 2018, and rather than intuit what it all meant, why don't you put out a referendum to the people so they have an opportunity to vote and ratify what they did 2 years ago, so there's no subjective interpretation about what happened in 2018. Thank you.
We did try that a few meetings
Thank
ago.
you.
All right, I guess there's a good time to explain this chart here. We put this together, Jesse and I, and it's color-coded. It looks kind of confusing, but just stay with me. The green, that's the current maintenance effort that the town pays to the library. It was $841. It looked to me they were asking for another $10,000, and it would continue. The town proposal that was brought up the other night drops in 2018 we were at the 841, and then it drops to that 400 number, and then that flatlines. Now the state funding is the yellow line on the bottom, which is 181 for 2018. This year it would be 181, but in 2020 is the down year. That would get zero from the state because of this action of not level funding. Okay, as soon as you stop level funding, the second year they drop all funding from the state. Okay, so and then it continues based on the 400. It's approximately 25% of what the town kicks in, so it ticks back up to 100,000, which the total fund would be 500. So if you go to the darker red or the brownish looking line, that's all combined funding. So up there in 18, we're doing pretty good at the 1,022,000. These numbers are approximate. They're close to what Ricky stated. And then we dropped a little this year. And then again, and 2020 is a bad year. We go down to 645, and then it drifts again down, and we'd have to make that up. And the blue line is the fund balance. So we were at 686 for last year. This year, we would use that fund balance to shore up this year's budget, and that would bring the fund balance down to 245. Again, year 2020, it flatlines at zero, and then it goes out to the outer years. So could you show me the next chart there, Mike? Thank you. Okay, this is the total combined funding and the fund balance. So those are real numbers right there of what's going to happen. And again, in 2020, we'd have to make up that difference from 645, so we'd have to add to that. That'd be another, what, 4 change. The next chart, please. Okay, now, this is another confusing chart here, but, but stay with me. All right, for us to, what I propose is we draw down 100,000 per year. Instead of cutting the budget by 50%, we draw down 100,000 to get that fund balance lowered. So the blue line again is 686, and each year we're drawing down 100,000. So if, and then the town's maintenance of efforts would go from 841 down to 741, and that levels off. And the state funding would come back, and that would, because we're providing less by the town, that goes to 18. Now the library, the big thick line on the bottom there, the green line, that would have to come from the library's own resources. This year, end of this year would be 0. Next year would be 281, and then 118, 118. So basically, the top brown line is all funds combined. And again, we tick down in 2020. If the library kicks in 281, then we'd be on track. And then after that, they'd have to kick in 118 to stay with that 1,022,000. So basically, you're taking that green line and flipping it over to shore up the top combined fund line. I hope everybody got that. So,
Can you go back to the original, Mike? So if we do fund the library and we don't ask them for any of their money, do you have a line up there for that? Because that would
that's
be
the green line. That'd be the green line.
the green line?
Yes.
Well, they have 686 in the account. You're going to add 841. That, my math comes to $1.522 million that they would have.
Right. Well, that if they kept the reserve,
Right.
and we kept on funding
Right.
the maintenance effort of 841, they would keep that reserve. If you want them to use the reserve, then those numbers will obviously change.
So in keeping the reserve, going back to the last chart of 741, using 100,000 a year,
Yep. Yep.
they're still going to be able to get state funding?
No, if they lose,
So we really don't want to lose that state funding. That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Right?
I agree. I certainly agree.
So if you're going to take 100,000 a year off to kick in, why can't you kick in a little bit more now? We'll give you the 841, and you get your 187,000.
Okay.
Council President, I'm going to add one thing. I just want to let you know I just reviewed the email that Patty Arkwright sent me, and she is correct that dropping below the maintenance level will reduce those services. So
Right.
include that in the
Thank you.
conversation. Yeah.
Lori Kelly, are you here? I saw you earlier. Lori, could you come up? I just want to have a conversation with you, ask you something. Patty Arkwright, anybody from the library board would like to come up?
Come on down.
Come on up.
Like winning a game show.
So as things stand right now, right, that has been cut, the funding by 400. Rick made a proposal earlier, and I want to know if you'd be willing to talk about this proposal. I understand that would probably mean an additional meeting, additional budget reviews. There'll be more work involved. But my question to you is, would you be willing to talk about that, to take a look at the reserve you have of the 686, put it back, transfer it to our general fund, earmarked for the library build-out? You know that we have at least 3 or 4 RFPs coming in for the existing site, and we can go ahead and fully fund the library, the 841. Is that something that the library board would consider? Because we look at that, I look at that, and people who do not come to these meetings because they don't want to come, they don't want to be chastised or made fun of, they look at that as taxpayer dollars that you have in that surplus at 686. So we'd all like to have a better library. I certainly do not want to have the library patrons suffering for not having the ability to go to different libraries or to use our library. So I look at what Rick proposed as something that we should really strongly talk about, and I'm willing to talk about that. To take the surplus that you have, the 686, put it right back to the general fund earmarked for the build-out of the current library and fully fund you guys. And then we have the ability as a town council to take a look at additional funds that we could put in when we do get the RFP back. I mean, I know that when the RFPs do come back, we'll need to have them go back to the library and take a look at the second floor because they couldn't get in to take a look at the second floor. But is this a conversation that you're willing to have? It seems that it would solve everything here. It would allow this library to be fully funded and allow the tax base from the taxpayers to have their 686 back in a way that we put it there for, to be able to use for the library.
Jill, I think you know I am not the person to ask for that.
That's why I asked Lori Kelly, and she didn't come up.
Let me read you the thing about appropriations. An appropriation from the town and state and the income of all funds belonging to the library shall be placed in the library fund created in Article 3 of this chapter. And I'm sorry I didn't start with it, but this is the Rhode Island state law section. It's Chapter 29, Section 4223, and it talks about library funds. So such funds shall be subject to the exclusive control of the trustees for the purpose of the maintenance of and improvements to the library. The town treasurer shall pay within the limits of the appropriations and other library funds in the hands of the Board of Trustees, all bills properly certified by such trustees. Now, as far as spending the money that we have, as you call a surplus, we have explained what the surplus is for. I would say that the board has already stated that part of that money has been put aside for other things. So I think that question's been answered.
So you're not willing to work with us? You're not willing to do that? That was my question to you, is would you be willing to sit down and work with us and take a look at that surplus? Because, I mean, what you said was very interesting as far as the library trusted and care. You were entrusted with the library, and it is in disrepair because it has not, the monies were not put into it. The roof is a great example, right?
Well, we explained why money was not put into it.
I understand, but
since I've been director, we have put in much. I have gotten grants from Champlain Fund to pay for things that needed replacing, painting, furniture, lights. We did all that. We did maintain it until the point where the strategic plan and the board's plan and moving forward with the Friends support and everyone else was to come up with a new building. And we started that in 2014 when we met with the town council, and they told us to look at the Belmont building and look at the current building.
I understand that.
And that's where we are.
I understand that,
We're
but
still planning on an alternate site because we do not feel this site meets our needs or the community's needs.
So putting the offer out to potentially look at working with you in this aspect that Rick laid out, you're not interested in talking to us about it all. Is that your answer?
Patty, maybe we could get a compromise here. Could you commit $25,000 a year to put towards building repairs?
You would think that would have to be in any way. I mean, because right now, the Library Board of Trustees, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, as far as maintenance of the building, DPW takes care of the snow plowing and of the grass cutting, all those things. If you take a look at the school has someone that takes care of all that for them, and they have funds built in to make sure that the building's maintained. That didn't happen in this case.
We maintain the inside mostly, and that's why I got grants for the painting outside and things like that, because we didn't have the funds at the time.
But you had the 50 for the roof, and you didn't put it on.
We were given the $50,000 by the council as a choice of paying for a consultant or putting in repairs into the roof. We paid for a consultant. And that's when Patience Jackson was hired to do the study on the building and its size.
I believe that we saw in the capital account, Chris, is there $50,000 in the capital account for the roof specifically? Yes.
But that was what Laura, the finance director, told us, that she was putting it in the capital improvement, but we could use it according to the council, and I'm sure it's in the minutes, that we could fix one or the other, use it for one or the other, consultant or roof. And we have had the roof repaired. It's a new leak, so again, it's repaired in different spots, But as you know, the roof's design is terrible, so it just keeps coming up with different leaks and problems.
Right, and that's why I say you were entrusted with the care of it. And even if you do give it back to us, we're going to have to take care of those repairs, either whether we're going to sell it at a lower price to someone, or the taxpayer dollars are going to have to go fund repairs in the building.
Jill, would a good compromise, that we can get a commitment from the Library Board of Trustees to commit $25,000 towards the repair for each year that they occupy that space? Is that something that everybody can get on board with?
No, I think the good compromise was what Rick put out.
I mean, we do have the $50,000 in our capital budget.
I just think everybody should think about this, and we can get together at some point and chat about this.
We don't want to lose that.
Is everyone?
Look, we don't want to I'm well aware of the state funding, okay?
Yeah,
We don't want to lose anything.
Yeah, and the state funding, we apply for it for this year each, so
I
in
understand.
September. So, you know, again, we won't know next year if we apply for it
Right.
and get it.
And I understand that. Look, people can say what they want about what I campaigned on or what I said, and I will say it again, and it's been in the papers. I want the best library that the taxpayers of this town can afford, whether it's where it is now, a proposal that we talked about Tiverton. I went to Tiverton Library. I saw the Tiverton Library. It's fabulous. Town in Narragansett, I don't think, can afford to put up a Tiverton
How
Library.
much was that library? Do you remember how much that library
It's
was?
12 to 14, and they raised, what, 3.5, 4 million?
They're in the, well, they have the 20-year.
Dan Barry knows what they
They
raised.
have the 20-year reimbursement from the
Right.
state, as we would.
Right.
And in the end, they're going to be paying, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, $4 million for their 11 to 12, $14 million library.
Right.
With the fundraising, the state money. So I don't know how you say we can't afford it.
Well, well, you just saw the budget. Right now, we don't have a $500,000 to $600,000 to put into a library. But I'll ask you this question. So we're 9,000 square feet now, and that's too small, right?
Right.
And Patience and Jackson recommended 20,000 square feet?
Correct.
What building is 20,000 square feet that we can purchase?
There isn't.
Right.
Belmont is.
Belmont's not 20,000.
With the liquor store.
Well, the liquor store's not going anyway. We've made that clear.
Well, you've made a lot of things clear, but I'm not.
we're going to go from a building that can't handle what we want to do in the plan to do another building that doesn't handle the plan. I think I could get people in the library industry to write a plan for a 12,000 square foot building, a 20,000 square foot building.
And where would we put it?
A 30,000 square foot building. I mean, you can get different plans. The whole basis of the library is based on a plan. If
We
you
had the plan, Rick.
excuse me, Patrick, if you reduce the plan, then you can make the plan work in a facility of a certain size. Am I correct? Could you put a plan together for a 12,000 square foot building? I guess
Yeah, you
that,
could put it together, but the state
Right.
isn't going to reimburse for that because that doesn't meet the needs of the community. So if you want to get state money, which is going to cut the cost of the library down.
All right, this is a public hearing on the budget, so we're going to try to get back to that.
Yeah, so to
And so I think
You asked me.
the budget work sessions, this is very reminiscent of what happened Tuesday night.
I did ask Patty, though, to come up.
I know you, no, I'm not, I'm just saying that's, this conversation is
and thank you for
similar to
coming
what
up, Patty.
happened Tuesday night.
Thank you for coming up.
All right, so a couple things. Is everyone enjoying being held hostage by the town council right now? It is like absolutely exhausting. So this plan over here, can you imagine them like sitting in some coffee shop, coming up with this plan? We're going to cut the budget, and then we're going to offer this offer back to the town so that we can renovate the old library, something nobody wants to do except for these three, and then we're giving them something back. It's so insulting to everyone's intelligence out here to think that anyone's going to fall for this. The compassionate voices come out. Thank you. Thanks for coming up. I appreciate it. It's a joke. This is an absolute joke right now. I know it's frustrating. I know you got to crowd together. We've done this multiple times. The town has done this multiple times, come out, supported something, shown where the town stands, and it gets ignored. It happened with the sale of the building. It's happening now. They do not care what the majority of people here want. They serve a small inner circle, and that's all they care about. Nothing's going to change. They're going to vote how they're going to vote. We all know that. The important thing is to not quit or get frustrated and disengage. The way to change it is to prepare for 2020. I see multiple people in the crowd here that are well qualified to participate. So, like I said, keep coming to the meetings. Do not get discouraged, because eventually things will swing the way the majority wants them to go. So anyway, thank you guys.
All right, so anyone who wanted to talk regarding the budget as part of the public hearing on the budget? All right, with that, I'm going to take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0. So we're going to move on to, we were on item number 24.
Yes.
Which is a motion to approve providing immediate access of the Belmont Market space to the Library Board of Trustees. Is anyone who wants to speak on that item? Yes.
I know, this library is beating me up today.
Gloria Roman, 33 Weavefield Cove Road. The Belmont building is a town building. Anybody in the town should be able to have access to that building. The previous town councils have encouraged the library board to focus on that building as the site for the new library. Many of you sprout these numbers of 10 million, 12 million, whatever. How will we know what the cost will be unless you allow the library board to bring the architects there and to have them evaluate the building and come up with a plan? You have brought people into the present library to evaluate some of the shortcomings, but you can't compare numbers unless we have the facts. And the architects cannot come up with a plan without seeing the physical space. Perhaps you're afraid that it's going to be a price that you think will be very much inflated, and it won't be. But you should give the library board access to that building. It's a town building, and we should not have any situation where people in the town, particularly the library board that's been entrusted by our charter to take care of the library, and not allow us to have access to that building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Dan Barry, 25 Stratford Avenue, Narragansett. A couple of things that might help clear some things up. Let me go to the question about the Tiverton Library. I was the fundraising consultant for them. I raised all the private money, and I also ran the bond referendum for them. Their total cost for that library was $10.7 million. We had a bond for $7 million. We raised $3.7 million from the community. The community is the same size as Narragansett. It's the same demographics. I was coming up here early, and then the time wasn't committed because of the RFP. You should know that RFPs are typically done by the library boards. Tiverton's was done by the Foundation Library Board. I bet if you check with Providence, their library board did the same thing. Town councils typically don't do that, so it's not unusual. You may want to do it, and you have the right to want to, but it's done all across the country where it is done both ways, by the town council and by community boards. The purpose of an RFP is to find out what the cost is. What we need to know is what is that value of that? Is it outrageous that we should sell the building? Or is it feasible that maybe we should relook at it and maybe find a way to make it work? I know this town can work together when it has to. I hope it happens at some point. But an RFP doesn't mean it's going to be used. It doesn't mean we're going to hire an engineer. It doesn't mean we're going to spend the money. It just means we're going to get a look at what it costs so that good decisions can be made. Right now, we're all in the blind. We're all in the dark. And I'd like to get out of the dark and work together and just get the RFP, which doesn't obligate anyone here to do something with that, but it allows us to make decisions based on fact. And we could use your help rethinking that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Catherine?
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. Tiverton is getting $1 million a year from casino funds. That's $1 million infusion into their budget that they can spread around any way they want. It's disingenuous to compare that situation with ours. But we have a town solicitor. I think the town solicitor should look at all of the issues with this RFP and should the library board have access or whatever, and he should make a decision. This is why we have a solicitor. He should be the neutral, person that figures it out. Not anyone, not people from the audience, and maybe not even you
I
people.
thought I got elected to make decisions.
Listen, we have a solicitor.
This is my agenda. This is a very reasonable
He's an attorney.
request.
Let him look at the whole situation and see if the library board should get access.
This is not a legal question. This is not a legal question.
Well,
and the
I think
Tiverton
might be.
Library was built before the casino.
They knew the casino was coming, let's face it. And by the way, they had a shack for a library.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right. All in favor?
Aye. Wait, we're on?
Yeah. So what do you think, guys? I mean, can we get him in there?
No.
Can we get him in there and just take a look around and see? I mean, it might be less, it might be more, it might be, it's so expensive that, it's ridiculous to put it there. Well, let's find out. I mean, we waited. I mean, we've been doing, Matt, since 2015, Matt. Even you voted to put the library in the pier in September 2015. So was the plan not to do the Belmont since 2015 for you?
Patrick, I think I've shared this. I mean,
No, you haven't.
Yeah, I
shared
have.
it.
We've
You
had
haven't
executive
shared it.
sessions together. This is the grandstanding that has to stop.
It is a
You've sat in the
grandstand.
room with me where I told you all, I've said it publicly, privately, I've shared my
15
concerns. In 2017 is when I started to think it was a bad deal.
You campained on the library.
I didn't
You
campaign on the
you voted
library in
for it the pier.
2015.
So my question is, at that point, did you know you were going to vote against the Belmont, keep the current location, and then defund the building?
I've shared with you and others, we were in executive sessions together, Patrick, which I can talk about now, where I shared where I thought it was a bad deal. Maybe you weren't listening to me because you and two other council members weren't listening last term.
Before the 16
And
election,
you were very
you were for the
disrespectful
library.
in
You were for the
executive
library.
sessions.
You were for the library.
I mean, Patrick, you were against the whole bond, and then you changed. So, I mean, I said I wanted, and I always said the existing site was my preference. I said, if this doesn't work, if we don't get a good deal from Gilbane, I want to go with the existing site. A lot of people in town like the existing library. They think it's a nice neighborhood library. There's a lot of people who have a sentimental attachment to that library. That they do. So, I mean, a lot of people like the existing library. So, anyway,
But we're going to lose. The state doesn't like it. I mean, we some people may like it, but the state doesn't like it, and it's going to be a problem if we don't make a move. All I'm asking is let these folks go into the building. If you want to have the engineer escort them or whoever, police have this big guy back here escort them. You know. I mean, whatever we got to do, but let's figure out what that entails to refit that building and the cost. I mean, we've been waiting for years for this, and we're right there. We got the ball, the goalpost right there. All we got to do is step over the line and just get this done.
All right, thank you.
Up and down both
All in
sides.
favor? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
No. Motion fails 2-3. Item number 25 is a motion to fully fund the Maury Lungens Library maintenance of effort for approximately $841,000 per year as done in the previous years.
Okay,
I'll raise the
that's,
motion.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Say it. That's Jesse and I again. Yeah, why don't you do some of this? Here, you take it.
So this would be a motion outside of the budget hearings to specifically fund the library budget at level to keep state funding. Up and down vote to keep state funding, keep the services we have. Again, outside of the full budget, this is just a separate motion to handle this specific town department. So.
All right, thank you. All in favor?
Whoa.
We get public comment, right?
No, there's no. We just discussed it at the public hearing.
This is a whole different agenda.
No, it's not.
It is.
We just discussed this we just discussed this, guys, at length in the public hearing. This is an up or down vote on this. We just spent hours on it.
Mr. Solicitor,
We spent hours
can you
on
chime
this.
in on this, please?
It's part of the public hearing.
I don't think separate discussion is warranted. We just spent 3 hours on that exact matter.
This is a whole separate agenda item.
But you really can't handle...
But it should have been. It's incorporated in the budget conversation.
You can't handle this matter outside of the budget. It's part of the budget.
No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. Motion fails 2-3. Thank you. Next item is item number 26, a motion to approve the sponsorship agreement with Citizens Bank for the 2019 Rhode Island Philharmonic Concert.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. So the Philharmonic Concert is coming up in early July, so we're very excited about that. Thank you, Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 27 is a motion to approve the purchase and installation of new black vinyl coated chain link fencing at Dominic Cristofaro Park from Costco Incorporated in the amount of $52,909 using the State of Rhode Island Master Price Agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item number 28 is a motion to read, pass. Before I do this, I'm going to ask people who are going to leave to please go, because we have, if people are staying, but let's sort that out.
We do have open
Because
forum
we
at
have
the end.
ordinance amendments here that are important.
Yeah, there is an open forum,
Open forum at the end if you have anything else.
if you're still awake.
A motion to read, pass, and adopt as a second reading an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning at Section 3.2 Official Zoning Map, rezoning 2 properties to comply with designations assigned in the 2017 Narragansett Comprehensive Plan Land Use Map, said properties being Plat NK Lot 3-15, 101 Riverdale Drive, and Plat H Lot 37, 155 Rodman Street.
So moved.
Second.
This is a second reading, so if there's no new information, then I'm just going to call for the vote. Any new information? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 29 is a motion to read, pass, and accept as a first reading an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning, specifically a new subsection, Section 4.8.4, Boone Street Special District, as introduced on March 18th, 2019.
I'll move that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is a first reading, so people may recall that this was on, and then there was discussion of some water issues over there and a 30-day plan for remediating that. Is there any discussion from the council?
I actually responded to Sean today on this. I know that Sean wants to has the opportunity to take a look at, talk to some of the neighbors and sit down with them, and I think that I'd like to have some more research done before we actually talk about this item.
Okay.
Under state law, if somebody's working on the property, they need to control their water. That's all new construction. I guess, what's the name? Is that right, Michael? Okay, so if there's a drainage issue, it's not the property owner on Boone Street or whatever street. This change in zoning is inconsequential to any drainage issues, because whoever builds something on Boone Street needs to control the drainage.
And so we have a first reading. Is there any comment from the public on that? Yes.
Hi, Susan Rogers, 56 Rodman Street. I guess I'm not understanding, so I would like some clarification before I say anything. So are you saying that there's going to be no consideration of the water problems that have occurred there in reference to this special district, Boone Street Special District
It
plan?
is my understanding that the water problem that's at the end of Continental is a civil action. Is that correct? Can you clarify?
Council President, my findings have been that the water issue on Rodman Street is completely separate from anything that's going on Boone Street. The issue is that the Gladstone Springs has a failed drainage pipe, but that doesn't have anything to do with Boone Street, so they're two separate discussions.
But some people have argued that they're linked. So I think it's up to the council members to decide whether they think they're separate, whether they are worried enough about the water issues that would affect their vote on this. The public hearing was closed on this, so it is a first reading, and so we do take comment there, but it's not part of the public hearing. So it's really if the council members, have to kind of sort out what it is. And the reason we did 30 days is it wasn't voted on for a 30-day, but there was a lot of discussion about taking 30 days. Council members had said they wanted to visit the site. I know some of them did, so that's where we are.
Okay, so all of those people I know in that section have not heard back from anybody regarding what has transpired for over the 30 days that you were reviewing this. So what you're saying here in this meeting is the town council isn't worried about the water issue there?
No, that's not. I think they're going to they may talk about that. I know I've spoken with some of your neighbors. I think we spoke on the phone or we exchanged voicemail. So I think maybe we didn't, but I thought you had called me and I called you back. But the bottom line is I don't know what everyone did, and maybe they went, they visited. I know I've spoken to some of the people.
So in other words, we're on our own.
You're not on your own. It's going to be a vote, a decision. It's the council members have to decide which way if it's a good plan or not.
Council President.
Yes.
Once again, we did go out to the site.
Yep.
We're aware of the issue. It's not related to Boone Street, so it's something that's being worked on. Councilman Murray had a proposal that he was working on. He thought that might help. You can reach out to me. We can talk about it further, but it's just not related to the proposal.
Because there actually is a particular instance of building that has occurred within the last 2 years or so that was put through the planning, the zoning committee, and we've been assured that when it goes through that process, that the appropriate town offices will look at, once it's passed through and say, okay, we're going to do this, then it's up to the engineering department or everybody else to determine whether or not there needs to be something done if it creates a water issue. And we have a perfect example of where that has not happened, and it is related to the Boone Street area. And I don't know if that person is here that can talk about it, but pretty much something that the town did approve with the developer of this special plan, and he's already gone ahead and done some stuff, created a water issue that wasn't there before. And the town, I'm feeling a little bit bereft, I guess. I'm feeling like we're on our own, and that the town is saying one thing and doing something
No,
else.
I think, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So he's asking a question. Patrick, you can go ahead, but I think it's really what's the council's conversation on this. I mean,
Right, okay.
Unless you want to continue it, we can continue the item. I have no problem.
Mr.
continuing
Durkin
it.
owns the property next to you, correct?
Next to me?
Mr. Durkin, yes.
No.
He owns that acre lot where the water is percolating, it's hanging out in that lot, and it's going into your property, right?
Benedetti owns that property.
Right, across the way, but Durkin owns the lot in between you and Benedetti, is that correct?
Durkin's sort of the midpoint of that.
Right.
And he actually,
Now, one time, didn't he ask you if it's okay for him to repair the pipe? Did he ever ask you that?
yes, he did.
And you denied him access to your property?
No, here's what he did. He sent us a lawyer's letter from Lally,
Yeah.
who should be a name everybody should be familiar with, that said he'd like us to give him in perpetuity for $1 our easement so that he could,
Repair it.
well, so that he could take care of it. In other words, he wanted my property. Not repair it. He wanted in perpetuity for $1 for
Right.
me to give him that whole piece of
Right.
land. That's what he asked for. We said no.
Right, did you ever try to negotiate with him and say, listen?
Sure, we had him out there.
Yeah, and
We had him out there. The responsibility falls, well, has the town done anything about the fact that Durkin reroutes the water and causes
So
water
this is
problems?
This is a civil action.
You guys, this is why,
Okay.
and I don't want to cut it off, but if people on the
I
council
just-
if people on the council feel they need to get more information, then they should continue the item.
Okay, I just
That's
need
how
to
this
know.
should.
All I need to know is it's my one question. You're telling me that whatever's happening, it's up to the people who are involved in this to take civil action.
That's not what some people are saying right
That's-
now. That's what one person said.
If you
right?
have water spilling on your property from another neighbor, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a legal question. I was told earlier to get a legal answer, so let's get the legal answer.
Mike, I'm asking you, and I'm supposed to be directing this to you, right?
Yeah, no, I explained to you, right, if I'm going to go down if council members, if you want to speak before we vote, this is the opportunity. If people want to continue this, everyone's kind of, I think everyone had time to look into this more deeply. It is a controversial change. There's no question about it. It wouldn't have been continued if it wasn't. So what do the council members think?
Well, I think I'd like to have the town solicitor address the question from Ms. Rogers here about, is it a civil action or a town problem?
Well, I don't know where the water is originating and when that problem occurred, but as you said, Patrick, there are ordinances, and if the ordinance was violated, then the town should take action and enforce the ordinance. If it's not related to that, then it's a civil action.
Right. Okay, so now, we have, like Vickers, Mr. Vickers, he built that 3-unit on Boone Street, beautiful building. He took 3 horrible-looking buildings and built it. I mean, the guy's putting in cobblestone sidewalks, for God's sakes. All right? What town is doing that? Not us. Okay? He's making that street, what it should be. And then these are two separate issues. The drainage issue is getting connected with the reconstruction of Boone Street. And I think it's a tragedy. I really do. I think this guy's literally spending millions of dollars to improve our town and bring in revenue and jobs and tax revenue. I mean, that 3 units were horrible. Now they're 3 beautiful units. That the tax revenue is probably, quadrupled or more. So.
And I don't disagree with you that I'd love to see that happen, but when he actually did that, he did create a water problem for, I don't have the exact address or the number, but apparently he is now putting in French drains for that other property because what he did caused water to damage their property. And here's what, if you're concerned about your tax base, and you're the solicitor, I need to tell you that our property has been devalued extremely to the point where we're trying to figure out what and how, and we're going to save this based on whether somebody violated an ordinance and the town allowed them to get away with it and nobody's looking at it, or somebody else. And so your tax base is being reduced because of the damage that's been done to our property, because we keep coming back to you and saying, this property isn't worth that.
Well,
so while you're getting some money from Mike Vickers over here, you're creating damages to other pieces of property. And I just need an answer.
Well,
is it a civil action? I need to know that. So
I think the point is there's not an answer, right? Is that some people argue that the issues are linked and some don't. And each council member is going to have to share. As I said, it's controversial. The Boone Street changes have been controversial. There was a proposed mixed-use zoning several years ago. There was a village plan district that was controversial before I was on the council. So I get it. I get your frustration, but the council has to now deliberate and decide, or if you guys need to do more research, you got to say that you need to do more research. And
okay, I just need to understand. Are you just going to go ahead and look at this special planning Boone Street district separate and alone?
It's an ordinance change for Boone Street that we have to vote one way or the other.
So none of what we've talked about is going to have any bearing on that. That's all I know.
Should, my opinion, it shouldn't.
I keep coming down here. That's all I need to know. Should I keep coming down here or not?
Well, this is the night that's either going to be voted on or continued. So it's going to come to a resolution.
I'm really not sure that I'm getting an answer.
Council President,
I really don't.
if it'll be helpful, I could have the planner get up and explain the map and show you the difference between the Boone Street issue and the Rodman Street.
What do you guys want?
It's up to you.
Let him explain. Explain it better.
What do you? I mean, before that? What is the council members? I mean, are you? I'm not getting anything. I mean,
I'll speak just to get it going.
Right.
I have gone over to the area. It is bad. The water issue is very bad in that area. However, that to me is not related to the rezoning of Boone Street. It's very specific, coming from the spring, and then it's a pipe issue going through your yard. It's terrible. It's a real issue. I think the town should. I would like to see the town help out with that. If that helps out with this the easement issue, then I think it would be something that the town could do in goodwill to help bring those properties back to a state, a livable state. Really, it's terrible. I mean, it's feet of water. So I totally agree with you. And that is an issue that I see as separate from Boone Street. The only thing the reason it's being brought up is because it's in the general vicinity. However, it's clear that it's coming from the spring and is a break in the pipe. So again, I would love to sit down with you and the town manager and see if there's a way that the town could work with you to fix this. However, I think the Boone Street rezoning is a separate issue. So if the consensus is to continue it, I would be okay with that. However, I'm also fine voting it through tonight.
All right, anyone else? Yes?
My name is Karen Kivisto, 325 Point Judith Road. I own a property that is in the proposed Boone Street Special District that is subject to flooding by water flowing from the Gladstone Spring. The Gladstone Spring is located on Continental Street. Several properties neighboring mine, including property owned by the town of Narragansett, are also flooded because they are located downhill from the Gladstone Spring. I believe several members of the town council recently toured the area. I appreciate that. I would like to ask the town council to direct the town engineering department to install a tank to temporarily contain the water flowing from the Gladstone Springs based on the council's authority to protect its own property from being flooded. Pipes would then direct the water through a meter and a filter or chlorination process and into the piping network of the town's drinking water. The town would calculate the payment owed to the spring owner for his water by multiplying the gallons passing through the meter by the going rate the town pays for drinking water. The cost of the installation of the tank and meter and filter would be a credit to the town. The spring owner would only receive payments after these costs to the town were deducted. I believe this plan would benefit the town of Narragansett, the spring owner, and the neighboring property owners, some of whom are located in the proposed Boone Street Special District, such as myself. I believe it is the case that no one has a right to cast off excess water from their own property onto the properties of their neighbors. I have been unable to use my property for the entire time I've owned it, which is 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny? All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break, everybody. All right, thank you. All right, if everyone can return to their seats. We're on item number 29. So if the council want to take, is there a motion to continue this, or Motion to continue. Is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
All right, discussion, we've heard, so discussion, go ahead.
So we're going to hold up other people working on their properties for a civil action that is probably going to get resolved sooner than later, and they're two separate issues. Under state law, you build something, you got to be responsible for the runoff. It's a wet area. All in Narragansett, it's wet. You dig in any backyard, you're going to hit water. So, I don't know. There's no reason to continue this. This is nonsense.
What would take place during the continuation? So is there a direction of additional studies or sending more people out? I'll continue it. I'll vote for that if there's a clear direction of what will happen in that.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's clearly different philosophies about the whole thing. I mean, I have a lot of concerns about the mixed use on Boone Street. I mean, I've made that clear last term. I mean, 2 terms ago. But that's me. I don't know if people want to, vote it up or down. If people want to try to find a remedy, Patrick, you just, you said if somebody comes up with something. I mean, we did 30 days. I don't think there's a direction per se. I just don't want to. I want to see what everyone thinks about it.
Had a plan, but whatever.
All right. So, do you want to speak to the continuance, Meg?
Good evening again, Margaret Rogers, 68 Earls Court. So I went to many of the planning meetings. God only knows how many years they were, several years, watching Mr. Vickers, listening about the water, trying to wrap my head around all the perk, educating myself on all this. And if you continue this tonight, let's just cut through the fog, because this all goes back to some people in this council voting no on mixed use in the comp plan, which was presented to you by Mike DeLuca. And there was a lot of kerfuffles about that. And I know, Matthew, that you have anxieties over that because you voted against your own planning director's comp plan to have mixed use on Boone Street. Boone Street is already mixed use. All you need to do is kind of walk down it. You can see that. But Everybody that spoke here tonight has valid concerns. The town manager said it's a totally separate issue, the water issue. I've walked the lot multiple times. So you're just looking for an excuse, just that little opening, to breathe new life into why Rhode Island is the worst state in America in which to do business, sir. Because this man has invested his time, his talent, and his treasure, and he put it in my neighborhood. And I want to thank that guy for doing that. We need more of that in Rhode Island, not less. So this continuance is fake, it's phony, and there's underlying reasons called the NPRA, mixed use, and all that phony baloney. It's a disgrace. I ask you to please not continue it, and now because I spoke, I know you will.
Thank you. Anyone else? Wow.
Janine Marsh, 58 Rodman Street. I am the one that's right behind Durkin. And I had been to the planning board meetings, and my main issue was the water, as you know. Just 2 weeks ago, one of the people that live on Continental, the other side, where Mr. Vickers is, built that 3-decker, she has water. And at first she was told it was because we had a wet winter. I'm like, I don't think so. So long story short, Mr. Vickers has to put the drains there to drain her property. My point through the very beginning was when there's water or parking lots, where is the water gonna go? You just, Mr. Mannix, as Mr. Murray just said, Narragansett's a very wet area, especially where we are. So why put more buildings and parking lots? That's the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so it's a continuance. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Aye. I'll go to continue it.
Motion approved 4-1. All right. Item number 30 is a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading an ordinance amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning, specifically text revisions to Section 6.4 Dimensional Regulations as pertains to the height of accessory structures.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. This is our first reading on an ordinance that we had a public hearing on regarding the accessory structures. This is related to the height coming from the base flood elevation issue, where the houses can be built up on stilts and they can be built up to very high amounts into the 40s and 50-foot limit. So this is not the main part of that, it's the accessory structures. Any comments from the council? Commentary from the audience? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0. Item 31 is a motion to appoint Jeff Berry as an alternate to the Harbor Management Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved 5-0.
Go Jeff.
And now we have our open forum public comment section. Please conduct yourself in orderly, respectful fashion, and comments are for 3 minutes. And please go ahead. Who would like to speak?
Make it quick. You got 10 minutes.
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Stephen Daniel Fabrizio. I live at 1 Longview Drive, Narragansett. That's in the old neighborhood of Scarborough. So I'm sure that all the council members' addresses are matters of record, so I won't ask you where you all live. You know where I live. My threshold is approximately from this podium to the top step, top step, to the road. So last year, I had the unique experience of having a bus pull up in front of my house at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was accompanied by a Narragansett police officer in his squad car. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, something like 40 people drained out of that bus onto my property, disturbing me. I am a peace-loving man, and I do not like having my peace disturbed. And I certainly don't enjoy having that peace disturbed in a partnership with the town I pay taxes in. And I'm here tonight to make sure that come the end of May, when the students get a little bit more frisky, that I'm not disturbed again. And I don't want that to happen to you either, because I'd be happy to have that happen at your doorstep. Okay? I do not want this to happen again. I didn't want it to happen last year, and I'm here to assure my peace of mind that this town does not partner with any promotion company that conducts bar crawls, dumping people onto my doorstep at 2 o'clock in the morning. Let me finish by saying, these were students, and I've never heard students more quiet and less disturbing ever in my time. It's not the students and their behavior, it's the practice of having buses collect these people and take them places and then drop them off in my neighborhood or yours. So please, do not enter into a partnership with a promotional company that's conducting bar crawls. This is insane, and it's disturbing, and I mean that word disturbing. I'm very upset about this. I don't expect it to happen again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes.
Tonight they put a stop in front of my house. That's it. Flowers for me? Flowers? But you're gonna get flowers.
Mary Ann Grinchenko, 221 Foddering Farm Road. I can't express how thrilled I am to be able to read this letter and share the good news to the town of Narragansett. The letter is from Aaron Couto, Chair of RILA, Rhode Island Library Association. He said in this letter, "It is with great pleasure that I write to you to inform you that Laurie Kelly has been nominated for the RILA Trustee of the Year Award. It is clear that Laurie is well deserving of this award. We are happy to recognize all the great work done by Laurie with an award at our annual conference on Wednesday, May 22nd at Bryant University. The Friends of Narragansett Library would like to present these flowers to Laurie for this award."
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else? Yes.
Shouldn't that be a Purple Heart?
Thank you. Lori Kelly, Wildfield Farm Road. I just wanted to go over a few things related to the library. I know we had a big thing on the budget tonight, but the library does charitable good works. We donate to community groups. And H&R Block, I believe, I could be wrong on this, had an ad earlier before the tax date of April 15th where they said, "Our services are free, 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 free." And that's exactly what the library is. Our rooms are free. Our programs are free. Our tech advice is free. Instructions on tech advice is free. Book clubs are free. Classes are free. Movies are free. We have Rokus that are free. Hotspots are free. Nooks are free. Transfer from VHS to CDs, free. Genealogy bases, free. Language study, free. Car repair database, free. Newspaper archive, free. Museum passes, free. Universal classes, free online learning. And of course, it goes without saying, many people in the community require free internet, and we supply that free. You're right, we're not an enterprise fund. We cannot charge for anything. The purpose of town government is to collect taxes from the citizenship and pay for services that benefit all citizens. Public schools and public libraries have state maintenance of effort for that purpose. That is the business of town government. When you cut our operating budget,
you cut the state aid for our operating budget, 25% of what we are relying on. If we do not take operating budget contribution from the state, you have effectively stopped any renovation or building money. And this was asked to OLIS in December. So now we're beginning to see that this has been a long-term plan of this council. Because if you say no to the 181,000, then you cannot apply for any renovation or building reimbursement, which we had estimated to be $2.3 million on the project that was selected. So not only are we out operating, we now have no money for any expansion or building programs, and this will cripple the library into the future. For those of you who are in real estate, it's astonishing to me that you're going to go to families and encourage them to move to a town where you have dismantled the public library. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there anyone else? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, wait, are you coming up? Come on.
Naomi McDonald, 30 Kingstown Road, Narragansett. I wanted to say two things. In my opinion, level funding is the same as a decrease in budget. And number two, any decision to not accept $181,000 in free money from the state is fiscally irresponsible.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion approved 5-0. Good night, everybody.